Welcome to Plat Chat, Overwatch, episode 193. Here with Custa, Avast, Jaws, who just got back from the gym. Looking hella buff over there, Jaws. Yo, strong, powerful.
Oh!
Where's the lat spread?
Oh, the lat spread? Holy shit. Oh my god. Wait, he knows his posing? He knows his posing?
Right, that's all Jack does at the gym. He just stands in front of the mirror.
It's just the pose, that's it.
Just lining up.
Dude,
I mean,
you that...
you can get kind of... I'm sure you can do some, like, nice, like... I'm sure it does, like, some static tension to your muscles, like, if you're doing, like, certain posing really hardcore, you know? I don't think it's really going to build a lot, but, you know, something there.
Jack is on that Jocko Willink routine, waking up at 4:30 a.m., then going to the gym. Just having
You know what's really funny
shake.
about that? Dude, I see so many people take the piss of that, like, morning routine, but it's like, I get up at that time, but I'm not, like, doing 7,000 push-ups 5 minutes after I get out of bed. I'm just up and fucking awake, and then I get on RuneScape for an hour and a half, and then I go to the gym.
The morning routine.
Rise and grind, new morning routine just dropped. No, like, physical exercise for an hour and a half. I just need to play RuneScape, and then I'll go to the gym.
What do you do in RuneScape when you wake up? Do you go fish? Do you do wheat? Are there, like, daily quests? What do you do in RuneScape? What's your morning routine in RuneScape like?
Morning RuneScape routine. I get up, log on to the Iron Man, see what Bren has done for the group Iron Man in the storage, and then I just do some quests. That's about it. Me and Bren dominating group Iron Man.
Wait, you're doing a group Iron Man?
Yeah, with Bren.
Oh, I didn't realize you were doing a group one.
Okay.
Isn't that
defeat
the purpose of an Iron Man if you're doing it as a
Swing
group?
chip. Get the fuck online. Vala, get online. Everybody else get online. It's only me and Bren. It like what the hell? Like our whole like group Iron Man list is just me and Bren. Just
but
get
that
online.
makes
Alice
sense.
as well. Alice, get online.
That makes sense. And Alice doesn't even, I mean, like, Alice doesn't have an excuse because they're playing, you know that they know what they're up to. They can just track each other. But, like, though, like, that was expected, though, Jack, because Bren is the only one degen enough to always keep the gamer schedule no matter what, you know? He's the only one to do it. It's about an interest thing. It's the same thing with, like, Valheim, Jack, you know? Like, we couldn't keep the Valheim going, like, at all, because Bren and Josh were part of that. And Josh, you can't keep him to a schedule at all. Can't keep that guy to a schedule at all. And Bren, he will stay on a schedule if it aligns with his interest. Otherwise, the schedule, he throws that shit
Bren was all in on Valheim for a while there. Like, let's be honest. Bren went sicko mode on that Valheim.
Yeah.
But
it'll be same with the new project that's coming up, but we'll see. Maybe that's more. I can't wait for that.
Guys, we're building a Dyson sphere. We're building a Dyson sphere, PLATCHAT Dyson sphere. We're going to encase the sun in a bunch of new age technologies to capture it for limitless energy. We're going to see how long this lasts. Watch our journey on Twitch. So we're going to see how that goes. But I mean, that's just
going to be wild. New Dyson.
All season's going to be wild indeed.
I mean, to be fair, hour and a half of RuneScape before working out is not that crazy because like I wake up on the days where I don't have to come to the office. I'm like, or I have someone immediately in the morning. I like waking up and having a leisurely breakfast.
oh, it's nice to potter around, right? Get your coffee.
Yeah. I'll have my coffee. I'll eat my food, and then I'll sit for like an hour to like maybe even an hour and a half. I'm feeling lazy before I like go. You know, like I don't think that's that crazy.
It feels older. I'm just saying, it feels good. You know, I do go to bed a little bit earlier, kind of thing. But you know, I wake up at 5 and then jump on RuneScape.
Dude, I've been waking up at 5. We still haven't really dove into that. Jaws wakes up at 5 every day, right?
Yeah, every day.
Yeah, every day. Yeah.
Wait, who? No one.
Why?
Bunch of
What's the
fucking
problem with
boomers
that?
on there. No wonder why people. We used to be cool, guys. We used to be gamers. We used to stay
No
up
one
all
else
night.
is
We used to
waking up
play
at
fucking
5.
games, and now we're just a fucking bunch of old farts that just don't stay up late at all. We wake up at 5 a.m. and then play a little bit of RuneScape, and we
that's
call
one
ourselves
person.
gamers.
That's a single person on this podcast. Listen, I'm not saying that I don't go to bed early and wake up early for gamer standards, but only one person here is waking up at 5.
Yeah,
Only
that's
a
true.
single
That's
person.
a little heinous.
I get my 7-8 hours and I'm just up. I'm like, oh, it feels kind of nice. You watch the fucking sunrise, you drink your coffee, you play.
Because you're going to bed at 10 a.m., right? Or 10 p.m. Not 10 a.m., but 10 p.m.
Yeah, I like fall asleep about 10. Yeah, I like do a little bit of reading.
I mean, that is early. That's like, I'm like at 12.
To be fair, yeah, that is fairly early. But what I found with my own circadian rhythm and what I've discovered over the last few years is that if the longer I stay up, the worse I feel like mentally. If I get up early, it feels way better for my mental, like straight up. So going to bed early, waking up early kind of thing, it fucking works.
Do you feel the same way if you sleep? Is it just not the number of hours that you sleep though?
Not really, because No, not really. I always managed to get like 7-8 hours, like always. There was a point in 2020 when we got locked down, by the way, that I was experimenting very hard with how many hours I could sleep. I don't know if I told you this, but in the house, I was like, okay, let me get 8 hours. And then I was like, okay, let me reduce that. I'm going to get 7 hours. And then I was going as low as I possibly could before I just crashed and like collapsed. I got to like 6 and a little bit, I think, before I was like, I cannot do this.
Dude, there are like people who experiment with sleep cycles like crazy. So the average sleep cycle, or well, it's like 1 hour, 30 minutes or whatever. And usually people get like 5 in, like 5 sleep cycles is a good amount. There are some people who like, instead of doing all 5 at once, they do like 1 sleep cycle to sleep for 1 hour 30, and then they're up for like 3 hours, and then they go to sleep for 90 minutes again, and then they're up for 3 hours. And so they just reduce the amount they sleep each day by having more regular sleep, but they're actually up longer. So they only sleep like 4 hours a day. These people are crazy. I don't get how to do it.
That's fucking... I mean, so the thing is, I mean, technically our sleep schedules are not natural, technically, because like we've like... all the 8-hour sleep was essentially put forward by the industrialization of society, you know? Before that, we were hunter-gatherer. Yeah, that's not natural. Before, humans were... we were just out... we were...
What is natural sleep, I've asked?
How
long is my body developed to sleep?
It's not ordered the same way, because we'd be hunter-gatherers, right? It's like originally, like we're spearing deer, we're catching fish, we're getting berries and shit, and then it's like, okay, I'm tired, I'm gonna take a nap. Oh, it's really hot, I'm gonna take a nap. That's how, like, it's like an animal sleep schedule, you know? Animals don't have like the exact same... It's like, it's the exact same, because we are fucking
I thought
animals.
It was you sleep when it's dark and then you wake up when the sun comes up.
I mean, I'm sure that corresponded a bit, but like technically the like 8-hour, like I go to bed here, wake up then, that's like because of the rise of industrialization of like we have jobs and shit, right? While before, like when a hunter-gatherer society, you kind of just did your thing and then you're like, I'm tired, I'm gonna take a nap. You know, like I'm tired, now I'm gonna go to bed, type of thing. Like,
so they were sleeping the same amount. It just wasn't in like one lump sum, right?
Yeah, it wasn't ordered. It wasn't ordered the same way. Like, so realistically, the weirder part to me of that is the sleeping for 4 hours a day. I'm like, that's bananas. That doesn't.
How
make
do you
any
wake
sense.
up after 4 hours and just become functional? If I wake up after 4 hours, I don't know what year it is for like a good 30 minutes.
4 hours, but it's like segmented, you know, like so it's like Liver King's schedule. You wake up, you eat 2 pounds of liver, and then you go to sleep for like 2 hours, and then you wake up again. You take massive $10,000 worth of steroids, and then you fall asleep again for.
There's
a
no way.
of hours
He's not actually. The
pass
Liver
out.
King doesn't actually eat the liver, though, right? He just says he does. There's no way he's eating.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he's just
But
taking
liver
a
is
bunch of
healthy
steroids.
in a small amount. Or
yeah,
decent
but
amount.
like on a small amount. This motherfucker wakes up 5 a.m. just like me. But I play RuneScape. He eats 2 pounds worth of fucking liver for breakfast. Like he.
I'm pretty sure that's like dangerous.
Bullshit. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure
it's
like
bullshit.
that's too much. Like, because the liver's got a bunch of shit. Only so much stuff that like.
Wasn't it like a ton of iron in it?
It's the vitamins. All the vitamins too. Like, I think if you ate like a bite of a polar bear's liver, you would just immediately die because it has like so much like vitamin like K or whatever in it that like your just body would. Yeah, essentially like a polar bear has so much like the liver has so much vitamin like K or like A or something that like if you ate it, you would just immediately die. Your body would just combust because there's too many fucking vitamins for you to process.
Oh, so many vitamins! Oh,
like, oh, I'm too healthy. Ah, like I mean, but it says you're just ODing on like your Flintstone gummy vitamins.
Me when I OD on Flintstones gummies. I took 2 instead of 1.
Oh god,
it's the same thing. I don't even know what this, but he's not eating all that liver. That's really the main point. I don't think he's eating all that liver. It's mostly steroids. Also, if he's eating that much meat, his ass is not pooping. He's permanently constipated. There's no way. It can't be working like that. He has to have some vegetables in there. Doesn't make any sense.
Well,
doesn't make any sense at all.
Going back to the podcast and snapping out of foreheads 2.0 here. Waking up at 5 a.m. is actually quite beneficial because of the time zones, Jaws. It means that you're waking up at a really good time for something. Because the Premier League is back in action. So it's only right we partner with the premier men's grooming company, Manscaped. A class above the rest, Manscaped is now focusing on their off-ball movement with their Beard Hedge Pro Kit. Manscaped is known for their elite ball skills, but with the Beard Hedger, they're helping people notice that pretty face too. So whether you're Lionel Messi down south or just focusing on looking sharp like Ronaldo, you can get the best grooming product at manscaped.com and get 20% off and free delivery with our code PLATCHAT at checkout. And I'm just gonna say this. I'm gonna say this with some desperation in my voice, guys. This might be the last chance in a little bit that you can use code PLATCHAT for 20% off and free shipping. So get it now.
Don't take this away from me, Johnny. We need this.
I'm just hyping you up. It's a Labor Day sale, but not a Labor Day. No, I'm not. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. I'm probably not supposed to make up shit like that. But use code PLATCHAT for 20% off on their existing sales. So they compound. You know, compounding is good if you want to build wealth, and now you're compounding sale. So there you go. The Beard Hedger is now available worldwide, so men from La Liga to Serie A can get immaculate facial hair to match the boys downstairs. The Beard Hedge face trimmer is a juggernaut of fixing faces. First off, this waterproof cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. Yeah, you heard that. No more drawers full of 20 different guards. That's right, Avast. With 20 lengths, it's never been so easy to find your signature beard look. Plus, the trimmer has a titanium-coated T-blade that is tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to single-stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. Just because Manscaped has smoothed above the groin doesn't mean they've lost track of the ball. They still have the Lawnmower 4.0. This trimmer is simply the best hygiene tool to help you keep the grass on the pitch the perfect length. The Lawnmower 4.0 ceramic blades reduce nicks and cuts in your most sensitive regions. This revolutionary tech is the best defense you can find for your penalty box. The trimmer's battery also lasts 90 minutes. You could be shaving your nether regions for an entire football match. Remember to take a little water break at halftime, of course. Go get your perfect trimmer for your face and happy place with Manscaped, Beard Hedger, and Lawnmower 4.0. Use code PLATCHAT for 20% off and free shipping. Thank you, Manscaped.
Go, baby.
I do love that this is really that the read is built into like football, Premier League very heavily, and that's like nothing.
They're
to do.
amazing. They're amazing.
Oh,
the fantasy football one really spoke to me. It really did.
I'm sure that one spoke to you. Yeah, that one definitely spoke to you.
Yeah,
I've only done like one fantasy like sports league thing in a while. I did like March Madness for college basketball last year. Went all in on Kansas State. They lost.
I won last year, so I'm riding off the high. I'm just.
I don't do those things because I usually give up like 2 weeks in. Like I just like forget about it 1 week and then I just like throw in the towel. But an Australian rules football one that we had, they have like an app, but they just tell you what the odds of each team winning are because they're like partnered with a gambling site. So I went into that just for tipping of like what you choose, and I just chose the favorite every single time and won, even though I didn't watch a single minute of the entire
Wait,
sport.
that's big brain.
Yeah, and so I won, and my entire family now hates me because I won. But you know, take those.
Well done.
You gotta put some money on the line, some incentive. So like we have $50 buy-ins in mine, and now I'm just like, these $50 are the most important $50 of my life. I need to defend them by every means possible for this random game that I think it's this egotistical like falsehood that I believe that I have impact in my ability to select the right players, but it's just random, so who cares? Anyway, Manscaped, code PLATCHAT for 20% off. There you go. All right, getting into today's episode. Not a lot to talk about this past week. Not a bunch of news. There was nothing rolling the game. There's the mid-season patch, I believe, is coming pretty soon. There'll be a bunch of lots of fun new stuff coming to the game. But I don't think we have any blogs. We don't have any patch notes. We don't really have anything to talk about. So we can't really address it, but we're looking forward to it nonetheless. So we'll focus on the Overwatch League today. There are a couple of news items we do want to talk about. The first one was Yiska reported just like an hour ago, pretty much, that the Overwatch League enters talks with tournament organizers for 2024 amid uncertain future. So the gist of it is that Overwatch League has been speaking to organizers like ESL Faceit Group and WDG Esports in the Asia region, I believe. So basically, we don't know what's in store for next year. There's this owners vote allegedly happening sometime in the off season, and we don't know what's happening. But it seems, if this is the case, if this is true, that we're going to move in quite a different direction compared to what we have now. So we'll see how that turns out. What was your sort of like first reaction when you saw this news drop?
I think it's a good thing. Like, it sort of goes in line with what a lot of people are anticipating. If the Overwatch League fails, they said that they were like, oh, we want to keep Overwatch esports going. You know, the thing that makes the most sense is like circuit-based play, which would be like having a circuit in like North America. I think in this article it says North America and Europe would be run by ESL, and then Korea would be run by WDG. So that's like the idea, is that like everyone would have their own little regions, and then theoretically, everyone would come together multiple times in a year, or like once or twice a year, and the circuits will play each other. Like, if that's what happened, that's kind of like what Contenders is/used to be, and I think that's probably healthier for the ecosystem. The big question that everyone has with this stuff is like scale, but this is like, even in the article, like this isn't just like, this is what is happening next year. All this article is really saying is that they know, or like they're reporting that Overwatch League has reached out to ESL and is in like, I guess planning phase, or at least just sort of like working out if this is even a viable option. But the vote hasn't happened yet and nothing has been locked in. Like, until that vote happens, no one really knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much everyone. It's just like, who knows? It's like they're talking to people because they don't know if the league is going to be around next year. That's kind of just the whole point of the article. It's like, well, we better have a backup plan in case we don't end up extending with our current league structure and move to a different structure of like a tournament-based system. Which, to be fair, a lot of people would be happy to see. Of seeing tournament-based circuits that are regionalized, and then we just have international competitions from these circuits, right? Like, because that's a much more traditional esports structure, and one that is like also remove a lot of the artificial limitations of like, oh, like teams can't be formed and win a bracket and go to an event, you know? Like, there's obviously, then we add in all the old logistical problems of like old esports. We've essentially just we made a league, like, here's all the problems with esports. And sort of the same thing what VCT is doing and struggling now, Riot, with the Riot ecosystem, is like, here's all the problems we have with esports currently. And then we made it. It's like, okay, it sort of fixes those issues, but then also we get these new issues, and everyone wants to go back to the old ways, even though it's problems, but it's like, it feels better for everyone. So it's like, we're reverting to monkey, you know? We're just reverting back to monkey in a way, essentially, with tournament structure. But hopefully there'll be some lessons learned, I think. I think that's my biggest fear is... I don't think anyone here in this call right now would necessarily be like truly upset if, let's say, Overwatch League in its current form ceases to exist, but we get a replacement circuit that is like that's sensible, you know, and like fits, and like also still is able to help us. Like, pretty much everyone here can still like commit to it full time, ideally, and like work on it because it's the passion type of thing, and like it gives Overwatch a good platform still, even if it's not the league. But like, I would be upset if they go to that format and they don't take any lessons that they learned over the past 6 years of Overwatch League operation into this new circuit, right? Like, essentially, if we just remade a bunch of the same mistakes that and then there's like, oh, we're gonna like put these random fucking rules that don't make any sense as well, and like we're gonna have all these restrictions that don't make any sense. Like, that's my one worry, is that institutional knowledge is lost because they've had layoffs, right? But it's mostly been like for certain departments, not necessarily the competitive ops department. But like, that's my only worry, is that, are we going to lose something in the transition? Is the Library of Alexandria going to be burned down between now and then of esports, essentially?
Oh, I love that comparison. Overwatch League and the Library of Alexandria. That's a good comparison. To be fair,
that's like not even really correct, because I would say the Overwatch League Library of Alexandria is like a very tiny local library that has very specific knowledge, and some of it is still being corrected. But like, you know, like that's essentially my only concern with this, and like how that transfer would happen. So.
Bro, okay, I before I hear you guys, I was like, I wonder what the Reddit thread is saying about this. Like, let's just see what the finger on the pulse. And there's someone in the Reddit thread who says, if this ends up being like a traditional esport, I'm out. And someone says, why? And they respond with, city-based franchising plus regular season with playoffs formats are better and more important to me. And I read that and I'm like, how? Like, how about what we are doing now is good? Like, how are we a city-based franchise model? We have no cities being represented almost at all, right? Like, we have the like tiny-ass watch parties. And then regular season games make me want to slam my head against a desk. Like, if I have to cast another game which has no impact on either teams, and like this massive discrepancy between teams, like, there's no way that the format that we're currently doing is better than like any form of circuit or regional model, which has, I would say, you know, my other hot take is I think franchising is just bad for esports, and no one has been able to do it right. Like, even the new Valorant like upgraded model is having their own pain points right now, Avast, right?
Yeah. But here, before I go into that, so, well, actually, no, we'll do this first. Yes, they are having pain points, but those pain points, in many ways, are not necessarily, they are derived from the franchise system, but they're not. So, like, for example, the guard here, like, and then we can apply this to Overwatch League, like Chengdu. We can apply this to Chengdu. So this way, before Johnny goes into a conniption fit, like, wow, we're talking too much about, before we go into the conniption fit about this, it's, there has because you don't like talking too much about the Valorant stuff. You wanted to keep it Overwatch related because we're an Overwatch podcast.
No, I'm
which is
good.
fair.
I'm good. But
Okay.
He's seething under the.
He's seething. He's coping. He's go. I
Under
see
those
the cope.
crossed
I see the
arms.
cope. But like the point being is that it's much like Chengdu with the Overwatch League, right? Like, but it's similar in that a franchising model, you lock into your partners or your franchise teams, and then but the problem is none of these teams are actually, yes, they're owned by big corporations that could fit the bill, but like none of them are really willing. Like if push comes to shove, no one's gonna be like, oh shit, I'm gonna pay out like a couple mil to keep this, like 10, 20 mil or whatever to like keep this afloat for a couple years, you know, while we're going through like, you know, high interest rates, like different economic like issues that are going on with that, like refiguring like incentives and stuff like that. Because for a sports team, like let's say for like a Premier League team, where like Premier League teams, like which is obviously like the largest sport on earth, they have financial trouble too occasionally. But they're just the bill just gets footed by their huge billionaire owners or like even like local governments and like cities because they want them to be there. That economy of scale doesn't apply. So like let's say if a company has issues and you're in a franchise, then it's like, well, fuck, we have like someone that's essentially dead in the water, you know, like our Chengdu just died and it wasn't really because of Overwatch League. It's because of the fact that the entire economy of China kind of just had a huge upheaval in the tech and streaming space, right? Similar to what happened with the Guard and Valorant, where like they won Ascension, they were going to become a partner team, their org just died. And you could argue it's like, oh, well, in a non-franchise model, we would just take, like, we would just, you know, we could easily, seamlessly kind of move this around a bit. But it's like, well, that wouldn't change the fact that even if it was an open circuit, right? If the Guard had won the open circuit, it was like they're going to be the big tournament thing. They would still die regardless, you know? Like, that's one of the issues I think where the pain points come there with VCT is that the same thing with Overwatch League is like you're locked into these partners. And if these partners have major problems, then it's really hard to get rid of them, right? But it wouldn't be that much different than if you have a really well-performing org that supports a lot of the scene that just dies too because of outside economic reasons as well. It would still cause issues. It just wouldn't be as structural with its issues per se.
I also want to say that just a side note as well, that the franchising in real sports or traditional sports, real sports, that doesn't make sense. In traditional sports, it's very different from esports because there's tons of like magic, like tax magic happening with traditional sports franchises where you can, like the owners of sports franchises, they pay like way less tax depending on like how much salary they pay for their sports teams and all this. So there's actually like financial incentive to own a sports team because you get like insane tax breaks. Whereas, you know, if you just run an esports org, I mean, there's no trick, right? As far as I'm aware anyway. So I'm not super well informed on that, but to me, it seems like the financial situation is different from owning a traditional sports team versus an esports team.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying like there's a lot more support from local and city governments and stuff like that. You know, like governments themselves will give you incentives potentially to like run certain things or like to alleviate your costs. So like that's the first part of that. Is yes, there are pain points of VCTs, and they didn't have to pay. VCT teams don't have to pay, and they're still having issues because of the general economic model, and like also because for some reason teams still can't figure out to stop spending the fucking money. But like so like that's something they also still need to figure that one out. And then in regards to, I think it was the other thing, the Reddit post. I think it's unfair, by the way, to clown on someone that was interested in the Overwatch League system, and that's what brought them in. Because I think that is something that was unique to Overwatch League, is that it brought in people that weren't traditionally... Overwatch League is a lot of people's first esport. People that weren't, not even first esport, and like, oh, I was super young, and this is the first game I grew up with, right? It's more so like, they were even older, and they got into it because of the model. And I think that is one thing Overwatch League did do better than other esports. Well, not better, but differently, in that it tried to, you know, we tried to be the NFL, right, of esports. We tried, and it was obviously not good. It obviously didn't work. It obviously wasn't like immediately successful, and like there was a lot of like big fuck ups and like the translation of those mediums. But the one thing that it did do was that I think it did bring over people that weren't traditionally going to be esport fans to watch Overwatch. Now, I'm not saying that should be the people we cater to, or that they're big enough to where that makes the most sense to stay that method. I'm simply saying that the people exist, and I can understand why they'd be upset if it goes away.
I think the thing for me is like, I'm not talking about like, I'm not trying to clown on this person. Like, it's more like, I think the problem that we run into is this model the number of people that are interested in the city-based model is such a small fraction compared to if it was a more open ecosystem that functions more like a typical esports. Because if you had regular endemic organizations, you can't tell me if we had C9, NRG, all of these like actual endemic organizations, we would have more fans because you're literally catering to an audience that wants to support esports, right? Like we definitely gained some people along the way that, as you said, we probably never would have tapped. But I just think in general, I think the Overwatch League and the city-based franchising for esports has proven that esports is nowhere near big enough or successful enough to run a city-based thing like this, and it needs to stick. Esports just needs to kind of stay in its lane, and I think that's one of the big problems that created this bubble that ended up bursting, and why we, lost so much money, right?
Yeah. Big problem with like sponsorships and stuff too, because you're tying a team to a city. And I think that, like, one of the major ideas was, well, you can get sponsorships in your own region or like your own city kind of thing that aren't really going to be, I guess, as widespread as like just a C9 picking up a Logitech or like a Steel Series or whoever, right? And it didn't really make a lot of sense. And I think that kind of idea, if the city-based franchises go away, will also just kind of go away, and you're able to just rely on more not generic sponsors, but more widespread sponsorship. I mean, we see a lot of sponsorship from teams nowadays that are like more widespread, like the Guard one with Doritos, and then Shock has a few of them, but then even the Shocks ones, they're a little bit more localized versus like a soda brand kind of thing. And I think it just kind of opens up that kind of ecosystem more too, because a Coca-Cola's of the world or like a Pepsi or whoever are gonna look at like a C9 and be like, oh, I want to sponsor C9, and then it's like, oh wait, London Spitfire is kind of like a subsidiary of that company. Do we want to sponsor them too, or do we rather hit the the bigger franchise, in which is C9? So like I guess there's a little bit of runoff there with maybe London Spitfire getting a bit of sponsorship revenue, but I think it would help sustain the ecosystem a little bit more and help the teams a little bit more too, because they can be like, oh, we have, this many followers on Twitter, we have this much reach and that kind of thing. Like, maybe you have like the Spitfire Twitter is still carrying on. I don't know, but maybe they just go for a kind of a rebrand, C9 Spitfire or something, right? I think it's just more beneficial, especially for like the sponsorship angle too.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag, I think, because in some ways the geo-locking kind of like made it easier. It's kind of the thing between like Overwatch and COD, right? COD, CDL is like, it's really easy for teams to like get sponsors because 35-year-old guys that now work in like, not boomers, but 35-year-old guys that work in like offices now and are like, or like 40-year-old guys, like young 40s, like people that aren't that old but are older and have now gone to the position where they're like have the keys more on like financial systems. Like they can be like, oh, like I can give, I'm a head of partnerships, I'm a head of sales, I'm a head of this, like this company. And it's like, oh, we play COD. And then every like 35 to 40-year-old man, like pretty much every 35 to 40-year-old man in America is like, holy shit, like COD, I used to play that as a kid. And you remember Big Red 1? Like, oh fuck, Ghost, holy shit, Soap. And it was Soap. Like, like everyone like kind of like knows that. So it's really easy to sell that. And the same way with like the geo-locking of sponsors, it kind of made it easier for certain times for companies to go to and be like, we are representing this region, here's our AHQ, like we're running events here. And so sometimes companies were like, oh, this is great. Like, for example, I think the most obvious one of that is Toronto Defiant. Like they really hardcore farm Canadian sponsorships in the Toronto region. Granted, it's a huge market with Toronto, obviously. And also a lot of their ownership group is like previous like Team Canada like Olympics people, so they obviously have like a lot of connections, but like they've been probably the most obvious of like, we are farming the sponsors of our region. And then like and there have been other examples of like people getting like local, like Mayhem for a bit had Zaxby's, which is like not Florida local per se, but like it's a place that has a lot of presence in Florida and like that part of the region. So it's like it really depends. I mean, Houston HEB, which is like a Texas like grocery chain.
That's fair. I didn't think about that, to be fair.
But also it does also make it like, if you're a region lock, it does make it potentially like less appealing to wider sponsors. But I think really the region locking, if anything, in my opinion, made it easier sort of ways, because like you could still get generic sponsors if you're big enough. If you're big enough, a generic sponsor wouldn't be like, oh well, I'm interested in advertising, and it seems you participate on an international stage, but you have Houston in your name, so I'm not I will not be giving you any money. You know, like it kind of like it's a mixed bag, I'd say, with the sponsorship stuff, in my opinion, where like it can be either neutral or positive, pretty much.
There is obviously value to a city-based model, right? And like that, as you said, there are teams are getting like local sponsors. There are definitely people from like cities that are like, I got into it because it was my city. But like, how many cities do we have represented? 20, right? Well, 19, considering we have 2 Los Angeles teams, right? But it's like,
Well,
why do
actually,
you
18, if
think?
minus Trump
18.
do.
Why
No
do you
time,
think
yeah.
Overwatch Esports as a whole doesn't exist in Europe anymore? Overwatch Esports was huge in Europe, but those cities just didn't get represented. And like literally they didn't touch that, right? Like you can't have a global esport that represents every single city, right? Like that's the problem. So you're even like, so we're talking about like, it helps you grab a fraction of the audience of the city, but you're only grabbing a fraction of the cities. So it's like, you're continuously like downsizing yourself in like what you can accomplish. I think esports in the future, if it does end up becoming as big as sports, like, yes, that makes sense, right? If you could ever get to that scale. But I just think that's hard, like really difficult to tap into, especially at this space. And one of the reasons I think COD did better with this model over Overwatch League is it's also a very North American game. Like obviously everyone plays it in the world, but North America loves it. So they just had all North American cities. They just picked up all the major ones, and people can attach to that, right? And even if your city isn't represented, you can go close and you can accept that, right? So I think that's why for Overwatch League, where more than half of our teams are from across the pond, half of them are Chinese, like a bunch of them are Chinese, couple of European, like I feel like it was just spread so thin that it didn't feel like we were able to really harness what it could have been. And I think it's just too early for something like this.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry I caused this rant.
No, I mean,
but
I think it's important to examine, like, because we're kind of, in a way, we're gonna have to do it eventually. But like, depending on what happens next year, like, there's always gonna be a post-mortem done at some point. There's gonna be the corpse of whatever the league is in that particular version, and our new version will emerge from the ashes like a phoenix, ideally, and we're gonna have to be looking at the body and be like, okay, what's cause of death? At some point, and like we could do, theoretically, like there's a lot of different arguments I think to like be had about like I don't think it's as cut and dry as some people make it to be, essentially, because there were certain aspects that worked, ones that weren't. And I don't think the reasons it didn't work were as obvious as like this was doomed to fail because of the idea. It's more so it was doomed to fail because of the economy of scale of the idea, And so like I always find that interesting to like examine that. But I think overall, tournament-based circuits would be ideally better for the overall health. Is like pretty much the grand scheme of things. And I'll be very sad if someone loses interest in the league because it doesn't have titty. Oh God. Okay. City. City-based teams.
City-based model.
I mean, also, a city-based model could go hard. It could in fact
crazy,
save the
actually.
league. But like
it.
city-based team model, we might lose some people, but I think the circuits will be better. I also, final addendum to this, I don't think endemic brands are actually that strong to guarantee like viewership either compared to the city brands, because like, for example, if you take like, I think the most important thing first and foremost is always the game. It's never really the endemic brands that drive like a lot of that viewership.
I just think there needs to be a more open circuit as well. Like one of the things that I hate about franchising is you run into the issue of the ecosystem or the competition becomes closed off because you need to be a part of the franchising to be able to do it. So it doesn't always lead to the top end of competition because there are players on the outside who aren't getting their shot because they got cut off by franchising, right? That's why I hope if we go to this circuit model, we have a much more open ecosystem. There are open qualifiers, especially early on. Open qualifiers, people have to qualify for these events to be able to participate. So then I think the big thing that it would leverage, and this is just sort of a different tangent, but the big thing it would leverage is streamers could get involved, right? They could create their own teams, go through these open qualifiers. Some of them might even qualify that will bring interest into people watching this, and a lot of new eyeballs would come onto it, I think. I think there's definitely going to be a massive downscaling to what we have now, but it could be better for the overall health of Overwatch ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, there is the optimist in me, and Jesus, I hate being optimistic all the time. But like, if you were to move away from the franchise model into an open tournament kind of system, there are like a lot of really interesting additions you could propose to that system. For example, we already started World Cup this year that they had the Sojourn skin to raise funds for prize pool, right? I think the World Cup in general has been pretty good this year. Even when I did like the last chance qualifier or whatever, like we had interviews with players from Portugal and they were just like popping off and showcasing personality. It would have more potential for tournaments, for example. I think one of the biggest problems this year is like there's not enough matches in the Western region, that is. There's not enough like meaningful matches. So, you know, you could change up the format. I think there are a lot of like interesting modifications you can make to the current Overwatch League esports circuit. So
Oh, really? There's lots of different modifications, huh? That's crazy. That's crazy. It's almost like every single year we've also had a different modification of the fucking circuit, which is like the most insane fucking thing to me.
yeah,
actually.
well, you
It's
know,
crazy that like one of the main gripes with the Overwatch League recently has been like, oh, the format and like, oh yeah, no, it's changing and shit. It's like it changes every fucking year. And so
Okay,
every
the Eastern format is it's insane that you log on to Reddit every day and someone's asking on Reddit how the Eastern format works.
I still don't really know
That
how
is
it
insane.
works.
Yeah.
How the
None of us
fuck
like.
my
People
main
still
thing with
don't
this the main issue with this is I hope we actually stick to a fucking format that works and we continue to use that format multiple years, because one of the biggest things that's happened to the Overwatch League that has been a bit of a negative has been the format changing over the last 4 years. Like 2020, fair enough, we had to change the format. I get that. 2021, sure, okay, we had the different tournaments. We were on the right path. We had this weird point system, but like we were getting there. 2022 rolls around and we have close to what could be a perfect system in the way we had multiple tournaments throughout the year that then concluded in a playoffs and a finals and all that kind of shit. And those games leading up to the tournaments were important. And then for some reason, we've now reverted back to a system where we have 2 tournaments a year and a lot of regular seasons games kind of sucks. Like, I don't want to move into a system now, whether we go with, you know, whether it's an ESL or it's a fucking, you know, ESL face or whatever, like, or whatever tournament organizer. We go back to a 2021, or then we fucking randomly flip around and we go to a different tournament format the next year. Like, the biggest thing that comes from this will be if we can stick to a goddamn fucking format that works. Because, Jesus Christ, the tournament format we had in 2022 was one of the better ones we've ever had. Just stick with that. Because holy shit, is this like just brain fuck every year of like, how the fuck does the tournament work? Oh, how the fuck does the scheduling work? How does all the, like, the APAC thing this year is just an absolute mess. It is insane.
I mean,
what is this?
I mean, essentially,
What the fuck is this?
Essentially, like, I mean, look at this is the crazy part. So, like, the thing is, Liquipedia's job here is actually, this graphic is actually really good. This is actually a really good graphic, but why does it look like I'm looking at the sediment chart for a riverbed? And I'm trying to, like, I'm like over here, like, doing some geology.
how do you
out, like,
expect
what it
people
is.
to digest this? It looks like baseball statistics.
But the thing is, this graphic is actually probably the best graphic I've seen. Now I actually kind of understand it a bit more because I had a sort of baseline knowledge. It's like, okay, every team that's in the light green, they go into the play-in bracket no matter what. Spark, they're qualified for playoffs already. They're definitely already qualified. And then it looks like Seoul is on the cusp of doing so, but it's not.
Okay,
Can you tell me why? I can look
Here's-
at the colors and understand like I can attach it, but like
Here's what I'm tired
I don't
of.
understand why.
Here's what I'm tired of. I'm tired of watching a match and not knowing what the stakes are. I'm tired of watching a match and not knowing how the outcome of that match will determine what happens with the teams. I'm tired of watching regular season matches where I go like, well, if the LA Gladiators win this match, but then Washington Justice lose by 2 maps and then Toronto Defiant beats, I don't know, freaking Vancouver Titans by 2.5 maps, that means the LA Gladiators can make a path if New York... Like, I'm tired of that shit. Can't we just have, like, elimination matches, Swiss format, or some bullshit that makes sure that every match means if you win... Good. That you can quantify what that means, what a win quantifies. So it's like, yes, in a Swiss system, if you're 2-0, that means you get to play another 3-0 team. And if you beat the 3-0 team, then you get 4-0 and you qualify for something. Great. Like, if I don't want to watch this Eastern format and just like, well, the average placing of the spring knockouts and the summer knockouts means that Hangzhou Sparks' average placing is 1.4, while Dallas Fuel's average placement is 2.3, which means that if the Dallas Fuel win this match against Guangzhou Charge, then they'll have to go through the play-ins. Like, what the fuck? Like, can we just have a format where if we win, it's actually like very evident that it's really good for you, and the stakes are like in the moment, like they're not dependent on anything. Like,
yeah, I mean, obviously, yes, we want it simpler. But I mean, like, I also, I'm going to have a hot take here, too. in reflection of this year, a shorter year is not good. Everyone prefers there's more competition technically than 6 months. I think the ideal format for everyone would be like 8 to 9 months for a season, you know? But I actually think as I reflected more on the season, this year, the regular season games had the most impact and felt like they were the most important they've ever been. But that's because the season was so short, right? Like you had less games to play. So I'm not saying they felt like they had an impact because of the format. It was more so they had an impact because there were so few games comparatively. So you couldn't afford to lose that many.
But for me, the reason I like disagree with that is because it's like, let's use the West as an example, because the East is a shit show. Like we don't even need to talk about the East. Everyone can agree to that, right? The West is it's like we can talk about the impact of these games and like how that led. But realistically, the only team that really got impacted was the Gladiators. Everyone else gets to go through a play-in bracket. Like Toronto Defiant were perfectly mid this entire year, but if they just hit the playoff meta at the right time, the rest of the regular season literally doesn't matter. They just go through the play-ins and they beat a couple of these other teams and then they qualify for the playoffs. So the regular season matches don't affect the like outcome of everything as much as I would hope it would. So it didn't feel like the games were as meaningful, and that's in general, that's my opinion. That is wrong with just like regular season. I think regular season is just bad for competition because I don't think that's good for. It's not interesting. It's not hype. I would prefer to do just brackets where teams can get knocked out and like then you play for a competition. And it's like how you do well in a short stint determines your success, right? And that's, let's use Valorant for example, right? You can do well in parts of the year and then have that success and then win something, but then you can suck later and it not be as bad because you won something in the past. And like, so your current form is meaningful rather than, for all we know, Gladiators could have hit the best form in the world and just been really good. And they could have just snuck into the play-ins and then made a run all the way to the playoffs. And then the entire front, 3/4 of the season would have been irrelevant for them.
I mean, is that any different than a tournament circuit though? Like what if they just play a tournament like an LCQ and just qualify?
But like an LCQ is you're qualifying for one small tournament, right? Like you're qualifying for that champs or that whatever the fuck you want to call it, a major, right? And that it's just more short term. I think doing a 6-month circuit has so many regular season games that all comes to one culmination for an entire year, I think is bad. And that's why I think this circuit mode for the regions will be better because you can win a region. That'll be meaningful, right? As much as you might not win the global event, at least you're playing for something each season. And that's what last season was great for, as Jaws said, because it felt like if you won a stage, that was meaningful, right? The Gladiators blew out in the playoffs, but they won 2 stages and that felt meaningful. And it felt like they won something that actually sort of determined that they were a great team.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the biggest thing for me. It's not even so much the lack. I think that is the meaning aspect. It's like, because I think a lot of times it's like, oh, the first half of the season didn't matter because they didn't qualify. Well, that could still change. That could still work the exact same way in a tournament circuit, in my opinion. But the meaning behind the winning is definitely impacted because like they didn't win a tournament. They didn't win a stage, right? Like that never that impact was never felt. I also feel like this year, because also part of the reason the regular season felt so bad, once again, I'm not here to defend regular season. I want a tournament circuit. Let me just put it out there. I want a tournament circuit. But also part of the reason the regular season also felt worse, even though there were less games, is because you have 2 teams that essentially made the regular season irrelevant. Vegas and Valiant were so bad that they... Like, if you had 2 actual teams, there could have been a real chance that, like, there's a lot more hype of, like... Because there was still a decent amount of hype of, like, oh, shit, who's making it into the final play-in spot, right? Like, can Glads do a crazy run? Like, it's like... I still think there were stakes attached to that because of the regular season and the short amount of games. So, like, all the games felt more impactful. But it would have been even more hype if we had 2 actual teams. But also, we remove that by if we go to a tournament circuit... Those teams are just out of the picture early unless they go through a crazy run or something. And, like, we can just focus on the good teams and the circuits and, like, they win something meaningful each time. So, like, 100% agree with that aspect. I just think that regular season this year, in my opinion, felt not that bad. But that was only because there were fewer matches. So there was less regular season to watch. And also all the games mattered a lot more to where we actually had really big stakes because of, like, the kind of the parity of the mid, like, in that area. But that could still be replicated in a tournament circuit, So just my own thing on it.
Personally, I like the flow more of 4 stages. I was really attached to that, but that's also because I'm sentimental about 4 stages. That's what I like more.
No, 4 stages is nice because also it makes sense because COD. That's the crazy part. COD still does that. COD still does that, man. They have 4 majors and champs. Like we just decided not to do it. You know, like they still do that shit. Like I'm like, and like it's even gonna be easier because their other last remaining EU COD team is now in A2. The Royal Ravens, which were like the C9, the London team, is now in North Carolina or whatever. So like it's even easier for them to do that system because like everyone's in North America now. Literally like every single team, pretty much. So
yeah,
like
again,
the thinking behind it just fucking confuses me every single year. We just go into a different like, hey, by the way, like we have our caster meeting at the start of the year, like, hey, this is the fucking format and shit like that. I'm like, okay, what is it going to be this time? It's just frustrating, man. It's just frustrating. I think for the longevity of the esport, it is just way better to have a consistent format that people can go from year to year and like understand. Say in a parallel universe, well, maybe not so parallel if like ESL actually does happen, right? ESL Face It. Say ESL Face It run the thing, and then they have 4 tournaments a year, and then they have the LANs. We do the online, and then at the very end, we have the LANs like we did in 2022. They run the LANs wherever, right? Fucking DreamHack or some shit like that. Or like, Gamescom or I don't know. And then you go into next year after all these teams have played and it's like, oh, this X team is better than Y team right now. And Z team is like one of the worst, And then we go into next year and it's like, okay, Z team made some different changes. Like, oh, and they're making a good run in the first tournament of the year. And it's like actually looking good for them this time around. Maybe they picked up new players or whatever. And then it's like, oh, we roll around different meta, different tournament kind of thing. And just having like that consistent all the way through. Oh, X team won 2 tournaments last year and now they've only won 1. Or they've not won any. Like that's crazy. Like it just helps with like retention of viewers too. Because if you're just changing year after year, it's like you have to learn a whole new fucking thing. Unless you just turn up and watch the matches, which is also pretty fair, honestly. Like casual viewers, I would imagine, or some of them at least, where you just turn up and watch the matches because that's fun. But for people that are really like invested in the league, that want to like see teams do well consistently, like their favorite team or whatever, like it's hard to do because the format just changes over and over again. So like honestly, going to a third-party tournament organizer might be a good thing because of just that. Because I feel like they're more likely to stick to a different format. Stick to a single format going from year to year to year.
Yeah, we should move on here. Solomon, you can pull up this graphic if you want. Just as like final laugh at it thing. But here's how the APAC knockout qualification works. And
I mean, they think this graphic is supposed to be better. This graphic is fucking madness.
It's not supposed to be better. I'm not saying that this is. I'm just clowning on it because I think it's funny. It's a funny graphic, but don't take it too.
No,
too
the graphic is very funny, but I hope Mr. Zetas, I hope you're not saying this is like they tagged us on Twitter being like, I made this for you, and I'm like, what is this? Like, this is hellish.
It is an abomination of a graphic.
I am
but
looking
it's funny.
I'm like, this graphic is fucking like it looks like I'm looking at one of those Dante's Inferno paintings where I'm seeing 13 circles of hell, all the figures everywhere. Like I can't see what the fuck's happening.
But like that's the thing. Like we're getting to a point now where we need these graphics, and whether they're good or bad, like it's like it's just the principle of having to make a graphic is that's not put out by the league.
The craziest thing is if you go to Wikipedia or like anything, it's just like, oh, we have 2 brackets. And you're like, oh, these brackets are nice. But then the brackets don't lead to the result of what you're looking for, right? So like,
if you win, you might not win.
It feels like a lot of the formatting is built on like they were listening too much to the complaints of Reddit and like players of like, we feel like we are getting hard done by like the way that the format works or like strength of schedule or all these kinds of things. And then they tried to like cater to everybody when really it should just be like, hey, maybe you just get good. Maybe if you think you should have been in there, maybe you should have just won more games or like won the games.
Well, it's also they're in Apex specifically, they're also balancing the interest of like contenders versus
contenders and now and
because
stuff
technically
like that,
Overwatch League teams, they technically bought into it and owned this, paid for the spot and the right to compete. Well, so if a contenders team just like knocked them out and it's like, okay, your season's done because you lost in one bracket to a contenders team filled with Billy 2020 and like like Legendary Gamer 97, like then you're like, okay, this feels kind of strange, don't you think? So like APAC is extra fucked up because of the aspect of that as well. Like it's extra fucked up. So
we should move on here. You guys asked before the show like how we're gonna fill time. Well, there you go. Talking about format for like 45 minutes or whatever. Yeah. Let's quickly mention this little small topic going on in the community right now about the 2023 Rollstar stuff. Yesterday, Kalush tweeted out. He tweeted out, "Can't wait to see the 2 pity Rollstar candidates from the East," which was met with some kind of response depending on where you actually lived. when you're tweeting. And then Yiska tweeted out, if you are... Just to clear up what this means, there was a change to the voting criteria for Rollstar this year. Voters were asked to mark 2 APAC and 2 North American players per role on their ballots. In other words, Rollstars is now the 2 best players in the role in each region. So 2 players from the West and 2 players from the East. This does not seem like a very popular change in the community, to say the least, because it does mean, like I've pointed out a couple of times, that if you want to, theoretically, if you want to vote to support Rollstar, you couldn't vote Fielder, Chio, Violet, and Chu, which seems like, you know, not great if you want to highlight the 4 best players in the league. So instead, you'd have to vote, for example, for, you know, Skewed instead, which, you know, Skewed is a great player, but it depends on your definition of Rollstar and what you want this award to mean, but it seems to be a not very popular choice in the community.
It feels like just like
Makes sense.
yeah, like we talked about this like when we first saw this and like we did our bid. Like I personally didn't completely follow the ballot to a T. When I noticed it, I was like, oh, can I do this for like this role? I like tried to work around, but like I think support was the hardest one, as you said. Like there aren't 2 support role stars in the East. Like their supports just haven't been very good this year. Like compared to the giga banger supports we have in the West. And it additionally doesn't make sense when you have 13 teams in the West and 6 teams in the East.
It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make
That's the
sense.
biggest problem. It's not
The
even just the
numbers
quality.
don't
The
make
numbers.
sense.
The
Yeah,
numbers. You have double the amount of teams. You have double the amount of teams in the West. You can't give you You can't get What is this fucking U.S. House of Representatives and Senate looking shit? Like you can't have like we can't have like
Wait a second.
What like we can't have like this fucking. It doesn't make any sense. Like this is. It's like California, population 300 bajillion people, 2 reps. It's like APEC, like 6 teams, like 10 reps, and then North America 14 teams, 10 reps. I'm like this. The proportionality doesn't make any sense. I'm not looking for a bicameral representation of role stars. Like this is ridiculous.
So I'll say this. I mean, so if you look at traditional sports, for example, there are awards in traditional sports where they are awarded based on like the conference they're playing in. So, you know, yeah, in NBA, for example, I don't know exactly how it works, but you have like the East All-Stars and like the West All-Stars. And so that's an award that's designed to essentially, you know, promote the best players from each different conference. Historically, this Rollstar award in our community for our franchise has been to highlight the 4 best players in each role. So changing that definition just feels wrong. If you wanted to highlight the best players from each separate region, create a new award with no past kind of like idea of what the you know, role is supposed to be, but just changing a current award, just like completely how it works and how it values players and how community is supposed to like react to it, that just feels wrong. So I didn't vote for Rollstar this year because honestly, I didn't feel like it was honest. Like I didn't like what this region rule implemented. You know, when I was filling out my ballot form, I wasn't comfortable not voting for Violet, Chu, Fielder, and Chio for my support role stars. Because when I'm voting for role star, I feel like I'm pointing out the 4 best players in each role. And that's what the role star means to me. And I couldn't in good faith vouch and just be like, you know what? I feel like Mag is one of the best 4 tank players in the league. Like because like, I just wasn't comfortable like vouching for him like that. And you know, Mag has been great. He's been really flexible on the role actually, and he's actually a really good candidate for All-Star. But just the idea of having to vote for Eastern region players just because they needed to be voted for, I think that kind of destroys the purpose of the role or the award. And so I just didn't really vote for it this year.
I also think it's worth noting that they said it would invalidate your vote if you didn't vote for the 2 and 2. We don't know how that means. Like, would they just take a couple of your Roll-Star votes away or what that means? But that was kind of what the idea was.
I just didn't read the thing. I'm not gonna lie. I just didn't read. I just didn't think it changed.
This is shocking.
Like, I know, shocking news. I didn't read the instructions, and well, I just voted for the people that I thought were Roll Stars. And I don't think I voted. I maybe 1 APAC or 2 APAC players throughout the like DPS support and tank. But like,
there are absolutely a few that deserve it.
Yeah,
but not 2 in each role.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I guess all my votes are invalid. I can't. Isn't there like normally a public list of who voted for who?
I think they'll just delete our votes because I did the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm
purposely
thinking too.
I vote.
Surely, because I voted for 4 in support for, you know, however many. Like, surely, what, they're just going to delete my entire thing, or are they only going to take 2? Because there's no, like, numbering order either. It's just like, oh, tick box, tick box, tick box. If you follow the instructions, you don't need a number ordering thing, and, like, who's the best, actually. So, yeah, I guess none of my Rollstar shit is actually counting this year. Because I didn't read. But it's also kind of silly. It doesn't make sense. Like you said, Johnny, not in no good faith can I make a judgment on an APAC player that I just don't think deserves it over a player that plays in North America right now. Like, it's just the reality of things, man. It's just kind of frustrating. Again, this comes down to a small bit, doesn't relate to the format at all, but like, why are we changing this? Doesn't need to be
this
changed.
one actually didn't make any sense because like, and I think I understand why, because the league is probably being lobbied by APAC teams. From what I can understand, from what it seems like is that I think the APAC teams are lobbying the league to be like, we want our players to be represented because like, the APAC has right now, it does get less like spotlight on it because it's, you know, there's less emphasis on the area. But at the same, what is Scott laughing about? Somebody?
There's someone in the YouTube chat who said Giga Chad 5 a.m. RuneScape player versus Virgin Reader.
Oh my god! Actually, dude, okay. Well,
So
actually,
true.
unrelated tangent. Just gonna say, Jaws and I play duo games a lot, and this lines up with his personality perfectly because we're trying to do puzzles. Me, let me think about the puzzle here. Like Jaws, fucking just running through the puzzle, just refuses to think for like a second, like just actually just the same shit. But
if I can brute force it or just no clip through the wall, like we're gonna be able to solve the puzzle quicker.
Just no clip through the wall. Let's just not do the puzzle. Let's just break the game.
it does not. It doesn't work, by the way. It never works that way. But I think the APAC teams themselves are lobbying the league to be like, we need our players to get the spotlight, which is I think it's their right. They're fair to do that, and it's the right to do that because their teams, they want their players to get spotlighted. It's like, I get that, but then it's also on the league to push back and be like, hey, unfortunately, there are 6 of you, and there are 13 teams in North America. You can't have proportional representation. That doesn't make any sense, you know, unless we just increase the number of votes. The league could have also just been like, we have more votes, but like, this, once again, they're trying to, I think, Custa, you nailed it, where like, they are being... It's like the Reddit thing is like, we listen to Reddit too much, and it's like, this is like the players in the Reddit complain so much, we're gonna give them all things. Like, no, people complain a lot about everything. We fucking complain about a lot of shit, like in our own personal jobs and lives. If we got every single thing we asked for all the time, there's a chance since we don't have the whole picture, that we could make something worse because they gave into our demands without really balancing the rest of other stuff, you know? So that's where the league has to come in and be like, okay, like, yes, we get you guys want your players to be spotlighted, but unfortunately, I just can't abide that Bellas Ria is in a Roll Star voting can't. There's an equal chance for Bellas Ria to be a Roll Star aside of like someone in Dong Hack and Fearless and shit. Like, that's fucking ridiculous, you know? Like, that's an insane ask. So, like, that's something they need to step in and stop.
It makes sense from, like, a perspective of, like, the past. Like, if you go back to, like, 2021, when APAC was a superior region and, like, they had, like, really good players, and you could say that maybe Western players were being prioritized because that's where most of the votes were coming from. But, like, this just isn't the way to like solve this problem, like by forcing people to vote for the East. So I don't know. I hope something gets changed, or like hopefully there's like a revote, because I think there's going to be a lot of votes that get invalidated. And you know, like I understand that some people are like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, but this is the last chance that you can get as a West Rollstar player, and there are going to be important players who are going to get snubbed, right? Like, we've had fucking Justice for Chio posts for the last 3 weeks. You guys are going to be even more pissed when he doesn't even make Rollstar, because people love Shu and people love Fielder, and then you got your boy Skewed and fucking, I don't even know, fucking Monk hanging out as Rollstars
like
for the year.
Bliss, Monk, you know?
Yeah, like Bliss,
and
yeah.
Like,
like
good players. Like, they're not like bad players per se, but it's like, did they really, are they
But they're not the
Rollstars
4
over
best in
others?
their role.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
And
that's
so
the
the
problem,
award
yeah.
is just like, what are we doing here? All right, yeah. It's I don't know what we'll see. I guess I don't know. It seems like everyone's just on the same page on this one.
Yeah.
Solomon, I gotta call you out. You said you had a clip. I really need to see this clip now. Do you have a clip?
Oh,
Position
this is-
two.
oh shit, yes.
Oh, what is this?
Does this guy just not read?
There's no
Dude,
audio.
why doesn't
No
he
audio.
read?
Oh yeah, wait. We have Discord.
Yeah, it's Discord audio.
Why doesn't my man
Oh,
read?
that's
Did
right.
you hear that?
It was position 3.
Position 2.
Why does my man not read?
Does this guy just not read? Dude,
what?
why doesn't he read? Why doesn't my man read? Did you hear that? It was
What happened?
position.
What did you not read?
You
everything.
screwed me with the rune. You.
No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. You just didn't
We
look
both
at the
trolled.
runes. No, I trolled because I will say I trolled later on that, not because of the rune, but because I misread the numbers 6 and 9 were oriented to where I thought 9 was 6 and 6 was 9. But Jack didn't read the runes that were on the go table. But that's not even the worst. That the clip is relevant to the conversation. That's not even nearly the worst thing that has happened in our playthrough if we were here. It's not even close to the worst thing. But we gotta move on.
We're gonna set aside our differences.
We gotta set aside the differences from this one because at the end of the day, we still persevered. Okay,
We did. Yes. By the way, everybody that said we wouldn't complete the fucking lift puzzle in 3 hours, we did it.
We did that shit in like
about
10
15.
minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, we did it in like
10, 15 minutes. Easy.
reeled
So
that.
easy.
Our brains are insane. I've been eating so many like walnuts and like I've been like having olive oil instead of butter with stuff. Like my brain is hyper juiced. Currently. Yeah.
You gotta keep me in on that olive oil. I gotta that omega-3, the fish oil and stuff. Avast and Jaws constantly testing their friendship and reading comprehension skills every week.
Yeah, very accurate actually.
Oh my god.
It's okay. We're almost done with the game.
I mean, the puzzle ones are really the only ones that do it. Also, just want to say, chat, related to this, while Solomon's been doing such an excellent work, just gonna point out that when it comes to being lateness for the last episode, I'm just gonna say that there was a certain producer lacking on the job. I'm not gonna say who was producing the show. I'm not gonna say who it was.
Oh my god.
I'm not gonna say which producer. It could be anyone. Could be any producer that resides in the UK. You guys cooked me last week. Okay,
Cooked me? What? We love you, Solomon. We love you so much.
It's true. We couldn't do it without
Jaws, have you played Anti-Chamber? You need to play Anti-Chamber.
Dude, what a great game, yeah.
Bro eats people and doesn't work.
What does Avast do? No one knows.
Florida Mayhem
Brett
YouTube
is-
channel.
Brett, get back to work. You've got short stated. You got short stated, buddy.
Community research. Don't worry about it. All right. Moving on. I kind of added this just now because I just realized that this was also, a small kind of like side topic. The typical like 150 upvotes on Reddit kind of thing, where it's like a small little topic, but it doesn't get a ton of traction. But it still, nevertheless, gets some discussion. The Washington Justice, they didn't need to win.
I'm back.
The Washington Justice lost their match. Oh, it might have been a different match actually than the one they needed to win. But anyway, was GetAmazed response after losing against the Toronto Defiant. He says, "We don't deserve shit. Disgusting mistakes, insulting performance towards the people that support us. GG's Toronto Defiant." Now, this raised a lot of eyebrows because the community thought that this was pretty bad behavior. They thought that this we don't know what's going on in the workings of Washington Justice, but if GetAmazed tweets stuff like this, oh my god, how does it run his team from the inside? Like, what could this possibly mean? This is so harsh. This is so rude towards the players. So the community is not thrilled with this one. I'm not going to give my opinion. Oh, I didn't even read that. Maybe I should have read that before I make a podcast on the topic.
There's a whole follow-up thing.
Yeah, that's the classic. Everyone just keeps digging and keeping the good times going.
I've been saying it's okay, it can happen, it's fine. I know I've thought that they are how good we can be.
Live reading?
but
Yeah,
we are
we're
losing
learning
this
about
ourselves.
reading. Okay, while Johnny reads, I'll give my take.
What's going on here?
Okay, like overall, I read the tweet the first time I read it, and I was like, oh, that seems like a lot. And like, I think that's kind of what the takeaway should be. Like, it felt unnecessary in my eyes. Like, you don't need to be that aggressive like that. It was just kind of like a little bit too much, but it also does not matter. At the end of the day, like, yeah, he's obviously disappointed in his team's performance. Probably doesn't need to get that worked up, especially on Twitter. But I also don't. It's kind of crazy that this has been in the news cycle for 3 days. That's sort of my my takeaway from it.
We're truly lost.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, though,
starving.
The game was rigged from the start. Follow up newvegas.png because, like, he's French. Everyone wants to hate. The Justice, people, want to meme on the Justice because of, like, supposed, like, cronyism things going on with that. And also, like, because, like, there's also a narrative where it's, like, Justice have fallen into a classic. They fall into a classic blunder where they've gotten a very good player in Alpha E, and then Alpha E is doing ungodly things on the battlefield, and then they're like, okay, like, well, these French people, they don't seem to be pulling their weight, you know, and like that's like they fall into a classic mixed team blunder here, where like certain teammates feel like they're not picking up slack, so it's like, oh, they're there because of cronyism. I'm not even discounting that's not possible. I'm simply saying that like the narrative's been set, and GetAmazed has fallen right into the trap. You know, they've baited it perfectly for like a mixed roster that has like high-ish expectations. They have high expectations of themselves. I think the biggest thing is like most problems on the internet, especially within like esports and competitive teams players, if you just don't tweet it, you'll be fine.
Don't quote retweet it. People wouldn't be talking about this if people just stopped talking about it after that happened. Like if he hadn't quote retweeted it again and that kind of stuff, people would have forgotten about it and people would have moved.
Yeah, but you didn't have to tweet that in general. You know, you don't have to tweet a loss.
You could have tweeted unlucky GGs and moved on.
You also don't have to tweet anything at all.
You don't have to tweet anything.
Said nothing.
You think there would be a Reddit thread of GetAmazed didn't make a post-match tweet after their loss to the Toronto Defiant? Like, no one gives a fuck. Like
that, at the end of the day, almost 80, I have to say like 80% of all incriminating / like drama-based things on the internet, whether it be esports or elsewhere, is because someone can't not tweet. They just gotta do it. They just have to do it no matter what. They just feel an insatiable urge to post. And I feel like if you just got rid of that thirst, that desire, you would solve a lot of your problems.
Wow, you sounded very Buddhist in that moment. Just get rid of desire.
I'm saying,
you know, all your problems.
consult with one of the major karmic demons, ascend yourself to a higher plane, and ascend to posting nirvana, where you feel a complete neutrality. You know, you are neither here nor there. You're also you're playing a complete post-neutral, social media neutrality.
I don't know. I kind of had the same reaction as Custa, where like I read a tweet and I was like, wow, that is quite a lot. It's not your typical like post-game GGs kind of tweet. But I've also just been in that situation where like I've lost a match and I've been like, oh, what a horrible match it was. And like I've been in that environment. So I guess I'm kind of like I'm used to it in some regard. Like, I don't know. It's obviously not something that you should tweet, and it's not that, you know, not a standard you should by any means. It's obviously not, you know, the way to behave on social media when you represent an organization. But internally, that is the way it goes sometimes for a lot of teams if you have a really bad loss and if you really get disappointed. And that could be a driving factor. That could be motivating in a way that, like, instead of moving on from a match that we lost and being like, well, whatever, we'll try harder next time. It could be quite motivating to just be like, wow, that was such a bad performance that it's going to motivate me to work even harder. I don't know if that was what GetAmazed was going for. He's quite an intense guy, you know, but he historically been quite a successful coach, you know. So, I didn't really, you know, get too riled up over the tweet. But in hindsight, as I've said, just don't tweet.
Don't tweet. I mean, I don't think you have to be that
Make
riled up over it.
Burn a Twitter account that has no followers, no following, and just throw it out into the ether, and no one will ever see it. But it's the catharsis of like you actually hitting the send tweet button. You know what I mean?
I've heard enough. Everybody find Jaws' burner account. He has one out there. All we need to do is we find the Twitter account that hates Mercy the most, and then we draw it. We work back from there.
We're putting out the Plat Chat bounty. We're putting out the Plat Chat bounty to find Jaws' burner. Please send us suggestions. Who you think it is?
Wanted the Jaws burner account. I mean, you know, we've actually...
It's that Mafia game or whatever.
On the Mayhem account, we ran into the Yazan burner. The Yazan burner we ran into, like, no joke, when we
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Wait, what, really?
We used the burner account to, like, respond to our post and that we made to making fun of him, and then he because you can tell it's his burner account. So I actually think I'm good at sniffing out burner accounts. So I think I can find the Jaws burner account in like, you give me 24 hours,
account.
I'll find that shit. I'll find that shit 100%.
You'll find some shit on there about you, mate. So
yeah, probably.
Oh, shit.
I would look on that and be like, this
Mercy
stupid dumb ape I'm playing puzzle games with.
Fuck this stupid American guy.
Doesn't know the difference between 6 and 9, this fucking dumbass.
All right. Do you guys want to move on to the play-ins bracket, or do you want to talk the last week of regular season as well? I mean, there were a couple of noteworthy matches that finalized the results.
Well, I mean, I think we have to talk about Glads, at least. Like, for a second. Like a footnote.
Yeah, okay. And the Gladiators didn't make it.
Yeah.
They got, they got-
Avast, what do you got to say?
They
You
got
know?
brutally dominated by the Boston Uprising, and it wasn't even close.
I think
Say your goodbyes.
I think
May they
well, first
rest.
of all, I have a couple of things to say for the eulogy of gladiators. One, Yaki's officially off the list. Okay, he was off the list before this, anyways. But like, officially, we can end the gladiators tenure by saying Yaki, I believe in you so much. Yesterday, I ripped all my jerseys off, all my Yaki Glad jerseys off the wall, punched my 72-inch TV.
No.
My wife and kids had to go stay with their
You were gonna say I
grandparents.
punched my wife and kids.
No, I punched the TV, not my wife and
my
kids.
wife and kids.
No, I punched
Well, hang on a second.
my 72-inch TV and broke it. And then, I just threw away all my Yaki figurines. And the thing is, Yaki didn't even fucking play. It was Kepster and Kai that played.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
here's the crazy part too. Sort of related to our other point. They actually looked not bad in their last couple matches. Glad's actually looked pretty and especially I think I don't think was it this one or was it New Junk City? Marvel had a fucking insane Junker Queen performance. No, I know it's Marvel, but I like calling him Marvin as well. So like he had such an insane Junker Queen performance. Like legitimately, this is actually the best they had looked in a bit in these last matches. Unfortunately, they had done such irreparable damage to their record already that it was like an impossible. They had hard games to like come back from.
Having to beat Boston to stay alive was kind of rough.
If they had beaten Valiant, they would have made it.
No, I mean
You can't lose the Valiant and then expect to make it, right?
Yeah. So that's the problem here. So that's rule number one. Yaki, he officially ripped off all my Gladiators Yaki jerseys off the wall and broke my TV in anger and stuff like that. So unfortunately, Yaki, I can no longer defend you. I mean, I wasn't defending you already, but like it's officially put into the books that I let it be known that I stopped defending you. And then I also think Gladiators, more so than they had a great history as an org, like they should be celebrated and everything. I think this is the year of some of the most puzzling roster move for the Glads that I think we've ever seen when we think of them holistically. Like the roster moves made by this team and like what happened internally has to be the most puzzling year since essentially the fissure incident of Gladiators.
Well, okay, I think that's extreme on like that, like of like how unreasonable it is. But the one thing that we just don't have an answer to is what the fuck happened to Lastro. Like Lastro was probably the best support player on this team, and he just like never played. They really went all in with like Babel, and then they played a lot of funny Astro for Lucio, but like Lastro just fell off the face of the earth towards the end, and that was never really explained in any context. So I also think Marvel, I don't think Marvel was a terrible signing. Do you think Marvel was a terrible signing? In theory, with the Winston Sombra. But
I don't think it was a bad. I think it was a bad signing more so in the fact that I don't think it's ever worth, if you're looking to be a really competitive team, to sign a player and they play from Korea the whole rest of their tenure. Like that's bizarre to me. To me, that's like, even if Marvin is like the better overall tank player, which I do think I do think Marvel is the best, is a better overall tank player than Dante. I think Dante has a lot of unique like pros about him that are better than Marvel, but I think overall, holistically, specifically a tank player, Marvel is better. But like Dante still was like good on especially on the picks that like imagine if we were in a jungle meta with Dante. I think that would have been perfectly fine here for them, right? And they would have had someone on low ping, like. And once again, this is like, obviously hindsight is 2020. It's just more so like, I find it puzzling the fact that you would look to get a replacement for a player, but you're not going to get them a visa. Like that's like Vegas level stuff, like why, like what, I don't understand that. Like that's weird to me. I think the loss of Shu, but the addition of Lastro and Babel, but then like Cal comes in. So you've cycled through 3 flex supports. I'm like, what the fuck is going on there? Like, there's, they didn't like their DPS rotation was kind of odd. Like, it's like there's just very strange moves across the board, I think, for this team, especially considering that like heard that Lastro wasn't that cheap necessarily. So like, could there have been a reason they could have potentially even kept Shu in the off season? So like, I don't know. Like there's so much of this that I think for Glads that I find they're very puzzling. They're just very puzzling moves for the roster as a whole and like the performances. So, something was up. I mean, something was really up, like with their roster this year, right? Like who?
Yeah, because we haven't heard from Unter or Face like the entire year, right? Like we haven't heard a peep out of the Gladiators like camp.
I mean, like I could talk to Astro, but Astro, you know, he's just like, I'm just a Lucio player. I just play Lucio, you know? Like he's just like, okay, well, I'm like, okay, great. You know, it's like that's all like, so who knows? Who knows if we'll ever know?
Because I assume Gladiators haven't made a single lick of content, right, this year because
they are making content because they are making content. It is puzzling. The content is puzzling.
Oh, really? Oh, is it like how puzzling? Are we talking Shanghai Dragons level of puzzling, or
I
like...
would say yes.
No.
They've released a couple of Shanghai Dragons level of content on their channel. It has been they have put just like it's essentially just like player like stuff with like Cal will be streaming and they just rip his like they've had like player highlights where it has the person editing the clip. I think it's still up on their channel, but the person editing the clip they were watching Champs while editing it, so all of the Champs audio is in the background of the clip.
No way.
Yeah.
There is no way.
Yeah. I'd have to go find. I don't know if I think they might still have it on their channel. I don't know if they do.
That is
like,
bad.
Yeah, they'd have stuff where they were like released.
So
they'd be putting a highlight up, and it has
So
like.
that means
and it would
they
be,
were screen recording?
They were just like screen recording, or
They probably have the replay viewer screen recording the replay viewer, but also had chants up on the side while they were screen recording, so it bleeds into the audio.
So because the thing is, they didn't have separate audio sources. They were probably just using OBS. They probably didn't put a separate audio source, and so it just recorded their entire desktop audio essentially.
rough. That's real rough.
Yeah. And then there's also Shanghai. This one, I mean, this isn't even the same
bad.
one. This isn't the worst one. This isn't the Iris one.
Yeah, what's the other one?
No, the Iris one's deleted. They deleted it.
They deleted the Iris
They
one?
deleted the Iris one.
Iris one was real bad. It was literally Iris just nanoing people.
But the thing is, they have pretty much for the past like 3 months or 2 months, their whole YouTube channel has just been these 30-second clips. And here's the really puzzling, even more puzzling than this. There is a shorts tab on YouTube. A point of YouTube where you specifically are supposed to put shorts. So 30 seconds or less or something around there. 30 seconds to a minute, you know? Literally something formatted for a short where it gets promoted differently algorithmically. They're uploading 30-second clips just as videos. Not as shorts, just as videos on the YouTube channel. Why are they doing this? Why are they that doesn't make any sense. So like there's been some puzzling, but also this could be pretty explained, I think, because for Gladiators at least their org is dying, and Shanghai, you know, like I think their org might also be dying. So we'll see.
I think everyone's dying. You know,
Everybody's
let's be honest.
dying. Yep. Everybody's dying here. Everybody's dying.
True. Day by day.
Yeah. Slightly
Goodbye, LA Gladiators.
You're not
Yeah.
reproducing
So yeah, I would
and
say
dying.
rest RIP Glads. RIP Glads. I think this is a shame because their roster had so much potential, and they just I don't think this team, looking at it, was like it's a shocking development that they didn't make plans essentially, considering the strength of the roster heading into this.
It's one of the most surprising placements in like Overwatch League history.
Yeah.
Considering they were one
is
map
crazy.
away from qualifying for the mid-season madness.
Yeah.
So
Something went terribly wrong here. So
yeah.
RIP Glads. RIP Glads for sure.
Yeah. The only 2 close matches this weekend were, or there were 3 actually. But Houston Outlaws, London, Atlanta Reign, San Francisco Shock were 2 really good matches to end the season on. And then New York Excelsior, of course, beat Vancouver Titans, which I guess you could consider somewhat of an upset.
Sick.
Yeah, it was pretty sick. Yeah. But I don't know how much you can actually extract from that. I don't feel like going into. Oh, here we go.
Oh, it's
Jaws and Custa doing the wave.
Yeah,
Yo,
look at
what's
us.
going on?
Woo,
What's
yo,
going
yay.
on? Hey, big
Yeah,
screen
look at them
TV,
go.
baby.
Yeah.
I think the Houston London game was interesting because it seems that like no matter what, London, I mean, we just have to 100%. They're not beating the one trick allegations.
Oh, they're not.
They're literally never
yeah.
beating the one trick allegations. They can't even pretend anymore. And the thing is, they don't have to because it's good. Like they're playing
they're
this
also not
Sim
pretending
Bastion
to
strat
beat
that
them, though. You know what I mean? They're not even attempting to beat them now. That it's just like, okay.
Yeah, but
this
the thing
just
is,
who
but
we
the thing
are.
is,
They're just doing that.
they're trying to
Yeah.
lie and be like, oh, we're not. Look at all these other times that we played meta
Right.
and stuff like on socials. Like, bro, you guys are not. You're Ryan players, and that's fine because you're actually really good at it. Like,
Yeah.
it's good. It's like this is their sim TP usage is fucking disgusting. Like they have like disgusting TP. They have Backbone, which is the best Mei in the league, probably like incredibly good walls, like value from the Mei. Always sets up their walls perfectly. all the rushes are good. They don't lose people on cross too often ever, which is like one of the biggest risk for rush teams is like you lose someone when you're making a cross through a choke point or something, like someone's gonna get picked. That almost never happens. Their TPs are so clean. Their cooldowns are clean. Like they're really, really, really good at the Ryan Sim Bastion rush or the May Bastion.
The TPs are just they're fucking works of art compared to like every other team in the league. Like it's so sick to watch them TP.
Like
So
they're
clean.
obviously hamstrung by like they only want to play this one comp and they're only really, really good at this.
It kind of works,
but it
because
works.
we're in a meta where it's like so in flux still, which is a good thing to be fair. Maybe it's not in flux. Maybe it's just whatever your team's strong at, which is kind of like the perfect meta. And if London, who have drilled this, is something I mentioned on broadcast, I think with you, Scott, and I was like, hey, if they're so fucking drilled on this one comp, like, dude,
hard to play
just
against,
keep
right?
Fucking run around
Yeah.
it. Yeah, just keep running it because other teams are still trying experimenting with their own team. Like, bro, why the fuck wouldn't you do that? And yeah, I think London looks sick. TP with the Bastion, it's cool as fuck.
I do have a question of like maybe the Junker Queen rush will just beat this because that seems to be the direction a lot of people are going in. Because
Right.
like Reinhardt isn't better, and like maybe it only worked really well against Houston because Houston are playing like a lot of this like Winston stuff. Like they aren't really playing meta either. So we'll see. I think I agree. Like, just go down with this ship if you're the London Spitfire. Like, it's the best opportunity you're gonna get. Because if they try and play what everyone else is playing, they're just gonna lose. Let's be honest. Like, every time they tried that this year, they just can't keep up. Like, it's not. I doubt they're gonna have a miracle run like they did last year. When remember, like they made it to the playoffs and they were just really good at the Winston rush or whatever the fuck that ended up being. I doubt that's gonna happen again. So like. Honestly, I think they can easily make the playoffs. Like, there's a world in which they choose a couple of teams and play-ins and make it through. So, all the power.
I mean, they were incredibly close to winning this match. Like, in Houston Outlaws clutched up and won some of these maps when, London looked like the better team. And I could totally see London Spitfire beating some of the East teams, because considering they can't practice against this either, and London is so really good at it, right? So, it's not out of the question for London Spitfire to not make a run in terms of like Sideshow champions rant, but the London Spitfire could actually, be a pretty formidable team in the playoffs if they make it. They have to go through play-ins first, but I think they look really good, so they're really respectable.
I also want to add like one tangent here because it was relevant to this match. I really hope if anyone from Overwatch League Ops is like listening to this, we need to remove Escort from being the 5th map. It will heavily change the enjoyment of the playoffs if we get to map 5 every time and we play a shitty Escort map because the hype just doesn't exist in Escort maps. I personally think we should put Push map 5. I think Push is actually quite entertaining and has a lot of like back and forths and overtime pushes, and a lot of great moments have happened on Push. I think Escort should be like 4th and then make Push 5, or even put Flashpoint 4 and Push 5, but I think they want to show the new modes. But whatever is happening with Escort being on 5 just ain't working.
The longer something can exist in OT, the more hype it is.
Yeah.
I'm like ambivalent. Personally, I feel nostalgia for like the Koth map 5, and I think I understand the reason. I think actually I'm cool with like a Push map 5 too. I don't mind that at all. I think it's kind of fun. I'm just kind of ambivalent towards it, but like I know some people care about it a lot more than me. Like it feels like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of it is like very like obviously I'm not saying your point is, Scott, that like your reactionary being like, oh, like this isn't good because it's new. Like you just like you actually like, oh, there's less OT possibility, there's less like fun stuff. I think there's a lot of reactions like something that's new, so it's worse, that are happening to like Escort being map 5.
But Escort's not a new mode, so that
I
doesn't
mean,
like
it's new as in like it's not map 5 new. Like it's like I'm not used to this type of new.
Because I think we've had 3 since we've been here. We've had 3 Escorts, and I think all of them have been incredibly underwhelming. We did a Dorado, I think it was, Jack, where it's just like one team just got full held and the other team just like pushed through with no time. It's like how do you build hype for that moment, right? Yeah, you can't do that. I think Mitch had one in the most recent Route 66 that he did for that map. Like it just, I feel like the writing is on the wall way too early for Escort of like which team is going to win, and I think that really hurts the enjoyment and the hype of those moments.
Yeah,
understood, Custa. I will tell them to put Escort to 1st map and control the 5th.
No,
That's crazy.
I think Escort and Hybrid are good in like 2 and 4 or like 2 and 3 or something, somewhere in the middle. Because like if it's a 3-0 and you end on Escort, it doesn't matter, right? Like no one gives a fuck. You can even put, Yez in chat, Flashpoint at 1, Control at 5. I'm fine with that as well. It shows off the new mode a lot more.
That's pretty fair, actually.
The only issue I think you run into that is that where there's only 2 Flashpoint maps, so it's going to feel like we're watching the same thing every single series. which
Yeah.
could hurt. That was like
Yeah.
the push effect when we had only Colosseo and New Queen Street.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna happen regardless because it's 3 maps, right? But yeah, it's more pronounced that way. Yeah. A couple of people made a point that, you know, well, we don't want push to be 5th map because push gets more easily determined. You know, it's hard to make comebacks. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, just look at last year's grand finals where the last map was push between Dallas and San Francisco. It was hype as hell.
Ridiculous.
So hype. Like, push can get incredibly hype, even though from a professional standpoint, it is sometimes just Joe over Biden, but the 6-minute mark. Yeah. So I get it, but I think push was a really good last mode to end it on. So
No,
I appreciate that, Scott.
it's like a small like micro thing as well, like switching rounds, like lulls, and I think in casting as well, if it's the map 5, like you don't really want to break for rounds, ideally, just because you want to keep the good vibes and energy at like 80, 100, So push just makes sense because it's just like constant, like. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can respect. I think that's the one argument that makes the most sense to me is that because of the nature of like a first hold in like an escort map or something, like there's an immediate possibility that the stakes are pretty much already set in stone, like pretty quickly versus like a Koth or a push map. So unless obviously you get like a fat roll on the push map and like, oh, we cap checkpoint 2. Second checkpoint with like 6 minutes on the clock, and it's like, okay, well that's pretty brutal, but like there's still a lot of time left to play still, so like I can understand that argument more than just like it's new. Like like I said, I'm relatively ambivalent, but I'm fine to change it to something else, I think, because obviously they're just trying to show off the mode, so the new game.
All right. Let's get into the play-ins bracket, and we'll talk about the other teams in the play-ins bracket, because we're gonna address the New York Excelsior, we're gonna address Vancouver, San Francisco Shock. We're gonna address these teams in these play-in bracket. So you might as well just get to it. Do these flip, Solomon? Did you figure out if these flip? I mean, if the bracket made any sense whatsoever, it would flip in the bottom, so you don't play the same team twice, right? That would
They have a pretty good bracket on the website, I think, that shows like where results.
Do they have a
from games
pick'em?
go.
Do they have
No, not a
pick'em?
pick'em. No, let's calm down, Johnny.
Well, yeah.
I
That was
remember
very
looking
packed,
at it.
So
Yeah. Well, yeah. That bracket doesn't matter. There is a bracket on the Overwatch League website that says where the matches go, but I don't.
Oh.
Let me look for it real quick.
yeah, I know there's a graphic. We use a graphic for broadcast, so I know there's a graphic somewhere, but I don't have it in front of me.
That doesn't explain where everyone's going.
It was probably in the post show of the last day, but
What are
look at us figuring stuff out. We're looking for the play-in bracket.
Yeah, it should be fine. Yeah.
All right, we're just gonna roll with this one. So we're going to predict the PLATCHAT play-in bracket. It's a hotly contested one. I think there are like 3-4 teams that could make it. They look really good at the minute. So this is going to be an insane couple of weeks. Remember, it's split into 2 different weekends. So we start this weekend, but then we have one more weekend where we finalize it. And of course, we have the East, bracket going on. That kind of matters, but not super matters. But kind of matters. First up, got the New York Excelsior against the Washington Justice.
Oh, this is hard.
Probably Justice 3-1 or 3-2, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Justice, they are the favorite. I mean, New York had a good game, the other day, but I don't know, man. I think Justice with Alpha Yi are just still too good, I think.
New York beat Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they did. Correct.
They did beat Vancouver.
What has been their loss, like, apart from
But
that
also
one
New
game,
York
like,
beefed. But also New York beefed the game before that to
Gladiators that look good.
Glads. But Glads look good. So I mean, like, I personally am not set in stone. I actually kind of think Justice. I think Justice right now, when I watch them play, they're pretty hard carried. Their DPS line is doing a lot of work for them. Their DPS line is doing a lot of work for them right now. I feel like New York feels and looks better still. And also, I think when they played Glads, they looked. They that was probably the worst form I've seen them in for a while versus the Vancouver match.
I think it's worth noting, like Washington went 0-2 since we had the new meta, but they also lost to Atlanta and then lost to Toronto, which two
they
teams I
lost to
think
good
are
teams.
very strong. Like
I
teams.
also think the more I think about it too, they beat a Vancouver, which honestly, Vancouver in this meta I think is really kind of fucked up because they don't have a double flex support possibility because Faith doesn't play flex supports.
Yeah.
So like they don't really can't really play.
They
the
have
Larry.
Faith on DPS.
Yes,
But
and they
the
also
meta's
they
moving
play
away from the meta's moving away from that though.
from Larry.
Yeah.
From
Double flex support. We're from everything.
Junker
Most
Queen
of the
Rush?
things we saw, we're going to Junker Queen Rush. Like I
Yeah,
think we're
I mean
gonna
that could still be pretty. But the thing about the Junker Queen Rush still is that yes, you can play like a lot of Lucio still and be very good at it. But I don't think that's like automatically a loss to the double flex. It depends. I think it's more map dependent as well. I don't think Junker Queen Rush is going to be the 100% meta.
I think it will be on most of the maps. Is my
You think
is
so?
my- sort of my
I
take
think
on
it's going to be more split.
Yeah,
I think
'cause,
I think
you play it
Orisa and
on
Winston will still have a space.
I think you play it on push, flashpoint, and control, which is most of the maps. I think hybrid escort, where it gets a little bit fucky, where you have like play Dorado or Nambani, right? You can't play that as much, and I think you're going to see some flexibility. But I don't know. I think for the most part, even in the East and the West, we saw a lot of teams going that direction. And then if people start just playing like full sending and with like a Kiriko, then I think it'll be interesting. And that's sort of my fear, not to jump too far ahead with Toronto Defiant, is Defiant have shown no willingness to play anything else other than what they're playing, and I don't know how well that's going to work in the long term.
I think it'll work initially in the play-ins, honestly. I think they'll go pretty far.
Well, we know the meta goes back to it
I
anyway.
don't think it's going to be 100% Junker Queen personally. I just don't think it will be. I think we'll see more maps. I think there'll be teams that don't play 100% Junker Queen. I think it's going to be a stylistic choice. But I might be wrong. I mean, it might make the most sense. Like
You know, I think at this point in the season, like if you're good at something or something has kind of worked for you in practice and stuff, like I don't think you'll just drastically change things. Like the Toronto Defiant, for example, like could they implement some Junker Queen Rush into their stuff? Yeah, for sure. But you know, they've been by far the best when they've been playing this slower composition, right? So they'll probably stick to that. It's too late to change now.
It's the London thing. They're just going to stick with one comp and they're going to get really good with it while everybody else is still trying to figure out.
Also,
like,
double
roll with
flex
different
is still
things.
really strong. Like if you play on certain map, like the double flex is like you have a lot of tools in your bank to deal with the rush if your cooldown usage is good. So like with the strength of like Kiriko, with the strength
Orisa and shit like that.
I mean, even with the
like,
strength of Ilari on certain maps, you know, like you have a lot of options still. I think so. I'm honestly I'm still kind of leaning New York. But I think we're voting for justice across the board here.
I wonder what happened to Custa's New
would have
York
a
love.
3-2.
In the middle of this season, Custa just felt some love for the New York Excelsior. Where's it gone?
They went and got fucking absolutely booty bopped by the Gladiators, and then also beat the Vancouver Titans in a meta that I don't think Vancouver feel that comfortable on right now. Like, you know, we all watched that Vancouver Titans game. The only reason that I think, you know, Vancouver were even in that was because of Sugar Free, right? So it's like, which, you know, we can talk about Vancouver later, but I just don't, I haven't seen hot promising things. This is a hard one, as I said, because I also don't have a good gauge on how good Washington Justice is. But I'm kind of just putting my eggs in the Alpha Yi Genji basket or like the Flora Sojourn basket. Like, I actually think this is a meta where your DPS can just carry. As long as Washington stop fucking around with their subs. Like, stop putting Mirror on support. Stop subbing people in and out to do all these random things. Just like stick with 5 players and just give Alpha Yi and Flora some level of support.
Yes. That's why I think they're going to do well. Like, Alfie fucking. Straight fucking right now. If they just start fucking around with the swaps, I think Justice win that.
My prediction is
though.
Okay. Yeah, that sounded kind of reasonable. But I was gonna say my prediction is that we'll see both Mirror on support and we'll see Fitz on Ilari in this match. So there we go. Both teams flexing around. I'm fine with a 3-2 for Washington to kick things off. Okay.
They both lose to Toronto, regardless of the meta.
Yeah. Let's just get that in there. Toronto wins. Toronto beats Washington Justice.
Toronto.
Yeah,
Wait,
Hold up.
Alrighty, no troll.
3-0. I really fine with a 3-0.
I
This is
think
a
it's
drop
fine.
in a map. I'm going to give Washington a map because I think it's going losers pick map now. We're in the play-ins,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So I think the
I can
chances
see
that a
both
team
team
can
loss.
pick a good
Everyone.
comp for themselves is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. San Francisco
Spitfire.
Shock that went really close against the Atlanta Reign in the last regular season match. You know, take that for you know what you will. Against the London Spitfire that went to map 5 against Houston Outlaws.
I think London have got like this. I think they're the kryptonite. I'm going to be honest. Maybe
This is the toughest match
Maybe
to
I'm
predict.
talking out my
I
ass, but I think Spitfire win here. I just do.
I don't think that's
just do.
unreasonable. I don't think it's
I think
unreasonable.
all
but I'm
the
voting
trials
Shock,
and tribulations the Shock have been through this year, I just think Spitfire is going to come in and just slap. Because it still feels like a Spitfire that has like nothing to lose. But like Shock have everything to lose. It still feels that way.
I also think Shock have been notorious all year with making terrible swaps in the middle of a game when something
Right.
isn't working, right? Like they just like they end up all over the place. People just start swapping left and right.
Exactly.
I think Shock is either going to come out and just know how to deal with London and it'll be fine, or it's going to be problematic for them. And I
Yes.
think it's more likely it's going to be problematic because it's hard to practice against.
I'm voting Shock. I think Shock look like the better team in their match, personally. I think London's
I
still
agree.
riding off the. I think London's just riding off the like. This is we're really good at this comp, but like all Shock has to do is figure out how to beat the comp. It's been beaten. Fuel lost to it when they were playing this. Now this is an APAC, not as strong, but like they could. I don't think the comp's unbeatable. I think it just comes down to like if London plays absolutely pixel perfect Overwatch that day, it's theoretically an unbeatable comp if you play pixel perfect Overwatch on your comp, you know? But like that's a high ask. It's a very big ask. And I think Shock played really well versus Rain. I think they played really, really well. Like the Max Junker Queen was good. Like it was really good. Like I think their backline looked really good. I will say the biggest weirdo point though he looked not bad. The Renko Lucio was interesting.
My question is, was that just like beginner's luck on Lucio? Because that can happen where like everything lines up for you for Lucio. His mechanics are good. Like don't let me discredit his mechanics, but map 5 he got punished pretty hard. Like and you saw like the weaknesses of the Lucio come out. But he like Renko literally diffed Chio on Lucio in that series. But can he continue that? That if he can, that's fucking huge. But we'll see.
I don't know. I think their DPS line was looking really solid too. So like, across the board, like I personally was more impressed with Shock's performance. London, I think they look so good because they're so good at that comp. They're so good at that comp. They have it down to a T. Like I don't know. I trust in the Shock more. But if London wins this, it would not be like the biggest upset of the century for me. I think they're like neck and neck right now. I think these two teams are essentially vying for a similar position.
Because it's like Shock almost beat Atlanta Reign. London almost beat Houston Outlaws, right? Like it's like they're both in a very similar vein right now in the way that we're considering them. It really comes down to how you think Shock is going to match up against London. And I think unless they get all their shit in a basket and finally work out how to make swaps mid-match, I think London's going to take it.
Okay.
I just got a
So
funny feeling, man.
Yeah, same.
rooting it back. Okay, I'm going back to fantasy football.
Oh god.
Okay.
There's this theory that when you're drafting your fantasy football team, okay, that if you are torn between two players, which one you should pick for your team, there could be a player that is slightly better, but you want to draft the players for your team that you enjoy rooting for, that you enjoy cheering for, that actually you'll have fun watching throughout the season, okay? I feel the same here, where like I kind of feel like the San Francisco Shock will win this one, but if I pred the San Francisco Shock here, I will just feel shit the entire way through. I'll just feel like, oh my god, why did I predict the San Francisco Shock? They mess around with substitutions all year. They're all over the place when it comes to their compositions. They're having Renko play Lucio now and apparently not Lucamina anymore. Whereas if I just pred the Chad Lona Spitfire that brings out the Reinhardt Sim TP and just do their Chad thing, that will be a way more pleasurable experience. So I'm going to pred the Lona Spitfire because I'll just have a way better time rooting for Lona Spitfire in this series.
Yeah, I'm down to pred London Spitfire. I think Jack's on the same bench, so we got Avast outvoted.
I'm the only dissenter,
Oh,
but that's
Spitfire,
fine. I mean,
baby.
like I said, it's not going to be a shocking occurrence if London won this for me because right now it's really hard for me to like. I just favor Shock right now for the flexibility, and I think the ability. They literally know what comp they have to play against. They literally know exactly what London
People know what London's going to do 100% of the time, and it never works.
Every
People
time.
just can't do it because
Didn't they lose to them? Didn't they lose to them like a few weeks ago? And we're
I'm
like,
just
what
saying.
did Shock
I'm
do
simply
with the
saying
Sen?
that I think, but also this is different meta. The meta is different now. That is different.
Is it?
I mean, London pretty much played the same thing.
Yeah, London's playing the same shit.
London beat them 3-1
I
end of July.
think the meta, the buffs that went through that let Junker Queen get stronger and stuff. I think Junker Queen gives you more, like pretty much it gives a Shock more options to play than they had before. It gives Shock more options to play than they had before.
I'm gonna be real. I've lost my faith in Shock.
London.
Like
London.
I don't feel
London.
comfortable in the
Also,
Shock.
I would like to tell on you guys, I think it has to be 3-1 London because I think if they go to map 5, is going to be escort,
London
and I think
lose,
London
yeah.
lose.
Yes, agreed. 3-1.
Also,
London's
London has had some
goodbye.
notorious chokes recently, like we saw in that match versus Houston. There were some notorious chokes where they have to work
Thinking
on
it's one of the
closing out
best teams in the
fights.
league. That's fine by me.
Yeah, they were on a 5-match win streak. Don't care that it was Valiant Vegas
The
Gladiators.
Commonwealth. Whoa!
But the 5th one was
I'll do
Shock.
it again.
So there you go.
Yeah, there you go, baby.
Let's go. Okay, which
Boston,
one do we
London.
get next?
Boston win 3-0.
Boston, London.
3-0.
Okay.
Yep.
Boston 3-0.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, that's one
I
done.
mean,
All right, sweet.
3-1 maybe. Loser's pick.
Not happening.
Yeah, I
They're
think
too good.
I have. Yeah, okay. All Jake's fucking Jack's. I keep calling you Jake lately. I don't know fucking why. All Jack's fucking optimism is in Boston needs to be tempered a little bit. But I think Boston are a better team and they'll deal with London better. Because my whole thing, and I don't know if you guys agree with this, is that I think Shock haven't adapted well at all, and I think they haven't shown the ability to do different things. Well, I think Boston are going to come in and they're going to play. We're going to play this one comp, and they can probably beat London doing it.
They're a
Like,
professional organization. They
Yeah,
know
they
how to
are.
counter.
I mean,
know how
also
to
they
play
have some.
very
They still
versatile
have
stuff.
some flexibility. It's just they generally try to pick like one. They've been picking one comp and going with it, but I still think Boston. I mean, I think Boston definitely has been a. I think Boston is better than Houston.
Ooh, that's a take. I like it.
All right. Okay. Okay. There we go. Boston 3-0. We'll save that take. We'll save that take for later this month.
I mean, I think. Yeah, I mean, I'll keep the 3-0. I mean, I guess I guess in this headcanon it would be a 3-0. If it was a headcanon, in my headcanon, I think it would be closer. Like I think Spitfire maybe get a map, but like yeah, we'll keep the 3-0.
Okay. All right. Vancouver Titans against Toronto Defiant. I think this is the third time this half of the season. Kind of
Yeah.
feels like it.
Canada.
They had a
Okay.
map 5 on July 15, and they had. I can't find the other one. Yeah, they beat them
Is it map
3-1
5 again?
just like a couple weeks ago.
3-1. Wow.
Yeah. So
All right, hear me out.
Toronto owned both.
Okay.
Hear me out.
He's going to say Titans.
Genji meta.
Okay.
Faith can finally play Lucio. We can get Punk on the Junker Queen, a hero that he's a lot more comfortable on. I'm putting a lot of my eggs in this Junker Queen meta read, and I actually think this could hurt Toronto. I think Toronto is a better team if they end up being able to play their shit. But if Vancouver's able to just play this Genji and just fucking run that shit down, there's a chance. Because that's what Vancouver's good at, right? Like, we're putting all our eggs in the sugar-free Genji basket because it's fucking nasty.
I like
And
that
he's saying
take,
he's saying
actually.
was
And
pretty good too.
he's saying, but it's
He has
probably
some
going to be like a
insane highlights.
Sojourn or something. Yeah, but like he's saying he's been playing well as well, right? Like, so that is
The
my
DPS lineup is very bananas. It's very, very good.
yeah.
Very good. I think if your read on the meta is correct, yeah, the team might just be nutso, but
I think it might be too much of a stretch. I think I'm swinging too
Yeah.
far. I think it
But
still needs to
then-
go to Toronto.
Do you want to overanalyze for a second here?
Man, they're crazy.
You want to overanalyze right here? Go way
Boys.
too deep.
Oh.
So, Vancouver Titans, if you really do think that they are better when it comes to the rush, they're probably favored on Flashpoint because Flashpoint, good for those kind of loosey comps. Vancouver Titans, also because they have a higher seed, will have map pick in the first control map, right? So they can pick a control map that is better for that comp too. So that already you have like 2 map wins in the first 3 maps. You know, not for sure, but favored, probably. Which makes it more compelling to predict the Vancouver Titans, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people are gonna be like confused with the reasoning of why you would even consider Vancouver if you just look at short-term results. Yeah, if you're just like, oh yeah, everything is going to stay the same as it has been in the last 2 weeks, but I think we're seeing an evolving meta, and when you get to the end of a second week of a meta, and I would say more than half of the teams are playing a Junker Queen rush, I think that starts to tell you the direction things are going. And I think if that is the direction things are going, Toronto's going to have to prove that their composition is better than the other one. And the fact that every other team in the league has pretty much given up on Alari sort of goes to say, show what you have. And that means Toronto would have to switch everything that they've practiced in the last chance. They can't play Marjad anymore. They would have to put in a Lucio player. Like, that's sort of the only thing that I'm really like running with in my logic.
Do you, okay, say they do run with that kind of thing though. I still think they're a team, and they're not like punching up. Like, this is a pretty even match. So just running your own thing and forcing it, I think would be fine. I mean, Sugar Free is crazy on the Genji, like disgusting stuff. But I would say I still think Toronto might win, but it'll be like a 3-2 just because they have looked so good. Because their DPS are also crazy. But if Titans don't have this crazy read, like, and they just perma-stick JQ, have faith on Lucio, Sugar Free on the Genji, just ripping the 5Ks, like, I just think Toronto right now, they look too clinical to lose.
I mean, Toronto's team would theoretically be really good in a Jotes-esque meta too, but they just haven't been playing it, and we don't think that they're going to flex over to it.
That's the thing. Like, just because their players can play it, you still need to practice it, right? Like, the question comes of when do they learn that? Is that a lesson that needs to be learned? And like, maybe I'm just wrong, right? Maybe I'm wrong with that meta read, and they'll be just fine playing what they do. But if, let's say I'm right, and they start playing scrims this week, and they get to play against the best teams, right? Like, because Atlanta and that kind of stuff, they're not in the thing. They get to play against like Atlanta, and Atlanta just plays Junker Queen Goats against them and fucking smacks them around. Like, then you're like, oh shit, are we in trouble? Because then you're not even thinking just for the play-ins, you're thinking even further ahead. You're like, well, even if we do qualify for the playoffs, like, what does that mean and stuff like that?
We're thinking too far ahead.
I'm personally
thinking, yeah, maybe. This is the hill I'm dying on. Sorry, Avast.
I'm going Toronto. I just think their team is better for the meta across the board. Yeah. I think Titans, like, they could adjust in time and it would suit them a lot better. Their asses were playing Lifeweaver. They got a lot to figure out. Like, I think also the Alari point, it's a good point, but also I think it negates the fact that Majed might just be the best Alari in the league. So, like, if you just have the best player on the roll, you can get away a lot with the value from it, you know? Right. So, like, I don't know. I think that, like, there's a lot of points where Toronto, to me, just seems like currently the better team across the board. I don't think the meta, no part of the meta is bad for them. Like, they could pivot and be better still than Titans in this meta. So, like, I just take Toronto across the board right now.
Custa, I really enjoyed my time on your side of the ship.
I appreciate
theoretically,
I appreciate
just
you coming
like
along the ride.
hashing it out and having fun. You know, it seemed like we're on the same page. We had some good chemistry. We shared some laughs. But then I realized that Vancouver Titans lost to New York this past week, and the 1 week turnaround glow up. It's too much. It's too much against Toronto.
That's fair. Honestly,
it's not impossible though. I think that's a good
maybe
point.
a lower
I think you
bracket
have a good point, Scott. I think the Titans point is a good point. It's just not. It just doesn't have enough data for me to go with it.
All I'm saying, if it pays off, I'm gonna look like a genius.
You will. It looks like a good call. You made a great call. But if Shock beats London,
yeah, that's true.
And
If
New
Toronto
York
beats
beats
Vancouver 3-0,
Justice.
don't tweet at me. I won't read you. I will block you.
All right. So we got Toronto going through with a 3-2 over Vancouver Titans. Let's do the lower bracket. Should we do lower? I don't even know. Yeah, let's do lower bracket first. All right. Vancouver Titans against the San Francisco Shock. The rematch. The Heesang rematch. After Heesang beat by himself the San Francisco Shock.
I mean,
I kind of want to go San Francisco Shock.
Yeah, I think Shock is over Titans. Because I think everything that I said in the previous meta literally doesn't matter because I think Shock wins. Because like the whole thing is built on a meta read, and I think Shock is already playing the meta.
They're already playing it. They're already good at it.
They're already playing it. They're already good at it.
Fuck it.
My Vancouver spread is less on Toronto, Vancouver being great and Toronto being not that strong in this meta. If things change.
I just think that's not true, but I mean, sure.
Well, okay. Well, what don't you agree about my Alari point? That if Alari ends up being not the meta and everyone moves away from it,
I still think it's a strong enough pick to be viable in a matchup that's not like one side favored. I still think if you have one of the best Alari players in the game right now in Sir Majed, that you can still do damage. You can still take games.
I think the reason that is shifting is people are playing Orisa, Lucio, Baptiste, which allows you to play slower. You're shooting from range, and everyone's playing this like sort of style. Now that people are just playing Junker Queen and they're shouting and running at you, Alari becomes a lot less effective, and that's the
Which
justification.
Which is pretty fair. But Still.
And the Hydron living in the fucking back line and setting up camp and just running for his fucking life is not going to be anywhere near as good against a Jungle Queen setup. Sorry, continue.
All right.
I believe the Shock.
It's a good point.
Shock 3-1?
Yeah, I have Shock, yeah. Probably.
Yeah, I'd go like 3-1. Yeah, 3-1 sounds good.
I'll give him a man.
Okay. All right. London Spitfire, Washington Justice. London 3-0?
Nah. I reckon this will be like a randomly close game for no apparent reason whatsoever.
I'll go.
It will just be fucking ridiculous. It'll be Alpha E like hard balling and hard carrying, and then
I think it's 3-1 again because I think if we go to map 5 and it's escort, I think. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I think the escort point still stands. Yeah.
I mean, I can't say that I have immense faith in Washington Justice escort ability, but sure.
Yeah, and that's it, right? Like, you know, I don't know. I don't see. Alpha Yi would have to just go fucking mental.
Crazy.
But I don't think one player can shut down the London Rush is the problem.
No.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's
Yeah, like
thing.
you have to
With the
navigate
comp
as a team.
Exactly. With the comp that London are playing, you can't just like solo carry as a DPS, I don't think. I don't think you're offered enough space and not offered enough opportunity to carry as a solo DPS there.
Okay. So we have, in the upper bracket, we have Boston Uprising taking on the Toronto Defiant, and in the lower bracket, we have San Francisco Shock and London Spitfire as our 4 remaining teams. Let's do the upper bracket first, so we know who's waiting in the lower bracket final. In the upper bracket, got Boston Uprising against Toronto Defiant.
It's Boston. Like
I can't disagree. I can't disagree.
Like they are the fourth best team, like on the border.
Yeah, it feels like they really are a tier of their own.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to put a 3-0
a tier
though.
above. I would
Not a
okay, not a
3-0,
3-0. Yeah, all right. I'd give Toronto.
I think it'd be got to give him at least
a
a 1. I feel like I'll get him 1 map.
I give him a map.
Yeah, I can give 1 map. I mean, I might even I think 1 map is probably my say. I mean, I'm tempted to give him. No, I'll stick with 1. I'll stick with 1 map. One map.
Don't give him
map.
2.
Okay. Boston to the playoffs, and we got Shock, Spitfire, and Defiant battling it out in the lower bracket. So first up, San Francisco Shock against London Spitfire.
I mean, we've already seen this. We've seen this before. Literally,
The slow ban.
I mean, I would personally say,
happening again,
like
baby.
I said, I would still have Shock winning, but
Happening again.
You know what? I think that they actually learned in their former matchup how to beat the London Spitfire. This is where they have a team meeting. They run it back.
I just got a funny feeling
No,
London are going
it's-
to be Shock's kryptonite. I don't know. I just got this weird feeling.
I have a funny feeling that Shock are like immune to losing in the lower bracket.
Yeah, I agree with
That's
Johnny.
also
I actually
pretty
think they
fair.
learned something from their previous match. Like, I think you come in a lot more prepared.
This is so intangible, Scott. It doesn't make sense.
Shut
but
the
we
fuck
both have
up,
the same
Johnny.
feeling.
Everything I'm saying this thing is intangible.
What are these
I got
watch
nothing.
former pros
I got no
talking
legs to
about?
stand on. Fucking Shock salty
Learning
run back.
between
Let's go,
matches?
baby.
You're who you are. No, intangibles all the way. Oh,
Gotta
that is
pray
so
with your
stupid.
heart,
That
not your
is,
fucking
oh
brain.
my god, what a Plat Chat
why
that
would they
is.
learn something there and not previously?
What do you mean?
Where was the other learning?
The whole point of London Spitfire's whole thing is that you can't practice
Losing is
against
learning.
it. Yeah, like literally losing is learning. You will,
Yeah.
Shock absolutely learn something if they do lose to London
Oh, this
Spitfire
is
there
so
of
dumb.
what doesn't work, and then you can come back with like a better idea, and then that can turn things around.
This is so dumb.
No way. Well,
Plus, Striker's gonna
Shock
come in,
win.
play Reaper, win the fucking game, and San Francisco Shock win the chip. Like we all know
Exactly.
that's,
Alright,
we all know
so
that's what's
Shock-
gonna happen
Shock
anyway.
win. Sure, I'll take the
dear.
Shock win there. I'll take the Shock win there.
3-2. They get to escort.
Let's take it to map 5 again.
Yeah, they get to
Take it
escort.
map
There we
5
go.
again.
Get to
The
escort.
intangibles come through again.
Yes. After on that one map to the Google escort and win. All right, Toronto versus San Francisco Shock for the last spot in the Toronto playoffs.
I think Defiant wins.
I want Defiant to win.
I think Defiant. I like their. I
We
currently
need Toronto in
like,
Toronto.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so
We
in
need
this
Toronto
actually,
playing
I mean,
Toronto in Toronto.
Let me think. Actually, I gotta think about this a little bit more because the more I'm thinking about this, the more I'm like,
The more you're trying to make
Maybe-
rash judgments, which is not.
I still feel guilty about putting San Francisco Shock in number 1 in our power rankings.
yeah, I think I have
going into the
Defiant.
season.
Yeah, I think I have Defiant. I have Defiant winning. Yeah, I think I have Defiant winning. I feel good about Defiant. I think it'd be like a map 5 banger too, though.
Are the
I
Plat
think if they're gonna play
Chat
London this well. I
San
think it'd be a
Francisco
map 5
Shock?
banger as well.
simp days over? Are we done simping as a podcast for San Francisco Shock?
I haven't been simping for Shock for ever. When's the last time we've simped for Shock even?
consistently?
I would like to throw my hat in the ring that I'm voting for Shock because Toronto can't play Marjed and can't play their Larry comp. Just one last time, throw that out there. All right, thank you very much for coming to my TED Talk. We can move on.
Johnny, you got to make the call. I have Defiant winning personally right now.
Really? Me? What?
Yeah.
You went to...
I'm Defiant.
Oh, we have two, so it's you. So are you voting Shock or Defiant?
Oh my god. Okay, so if I go for the Shock, Solomon, will you do a coin flip? Can you do a Google coin flip? Remember, this worked out for us last year, right? I think it worked out last year.
Did we get it right?
Well, we need to call heads or tails, okay?
Heads is Shock. Heads is Shock. Let's go, baby.
Heads is Shock? Okay.
Tails never fails, baby.
Flipper, baby.
Tails
Let's
never
go!
fails. Tails never fails.
Toronto 3-1? Toronto 3-1?
No, I think it's be a Toronto. Like, I think this is a
We do?
map 5 too. I think it's a map 5.
yeah, map
Map 5, yeah. Lower bracket, baby.
Toronto makes it to Toronto so they can play Toronto.
I hope Toronto makes it to Toronto.
There we
I
go.
hope so too.
I
I
just
hope
I
so.
like
I'm
the
wrong.
looks. I like
I
the
hope
looks
I'm
that they're
wrong.
doing right now.
Budget guarantee.
Yay! Pressure guarantee! Solomon is producing! Whoa! Oh my god, everything's everywhere!
He's editing HTML right now.
Oh!
There we go.
Oh my god. I feel disgusting after that Shock rematch in the lower bracket. That's filthy.
I think that's
That's
great.
that's stupid.
The salty
All right.
run back, baby. How
Yeah.
many times does salty run backs happen in esports? It happens
Oh
all the
my
time.
Ton.
All the time.
All the
All
time.
the time.
Happen in champs.
Yep.
That
baby.
that play-in's gonna be lit though. The play-in
It's
bracket
gonna be
is really
good.
good.
Who would have thought having games that have meaningful impact on the season are fun to watch?
Yeah. Speaking of, do you want to talk about the East play-in brackets? Anything before we go?
There's some interesting things to like break down in that.
Oh, Hangzhou Spark. They confirmed their spot.
Yeah, Hongkong
Because of
spot.
the averages or something.
They actually, okay. Did you guys, I'm not sure how many of you guys watched this match. How good do you think the Gushway Doomfist is?
It was okay.
Not
The
watched the
Gushway
game.
Doom, it did counter the fuel. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, that is not that. No, that is the narrative. People keep saying that Doomfist countered the fuel. Yeah, it counters the fuel if you just play Bastion Sim the entire fucking time without thinking about making any
Here, I'm
swaps
gonna
to
tell
something
my
more
personal
meaningful.
opinion.
MVP.
I don't think the Gushway Doomfist was that good.
No, it was good. The mechanics were good. I think you're discrediting. Because I expected it to be terrible. You know, the Gushway Winston one-trick allegations have been
No.
rampant
It's not. I'm not
lately.
saying. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm simply saying I don't necessarily know if it's gonna be top tier level. That's my opinion.
I think the Doomfist makes a little bit of sense in the situation, but I also think Dallas Fuel literally just didn't adjust into it. I think that it took them too long to switch.
It was fine. It was fine.
To switch out of what they're doing. Which was kind of a weird look for Dallas because like they just kind of like in a theoretical world they should be pretty like everyone is going Junker Queen, Sojin, Genji. Like that is literally what Dallas Fuel should be the fucking best at. Put Sparkle on Genji, put Edison on Sojin, and put Harmbin on Junker Queen. Fucking win the game. Profit, right? And that would work really well against the Doomfist and the shit that the Hangzhou Spark were playing. But they just like really decided not to do that. Edison went to Cassidy before he decided to play anything. And there were some crazy clutches, right? Like this one, like Hangzhou had no right winning this fight. And this would have won Dallas Fuel the first map. Like there were a bunch of like weird as fucking chokes all over the place and just clutches by Hangzhou as well.
Yeah, it was a strange series, and it has not at all removed my hate of the Spark. Because I know they're gonna go to playoffs, and it's gonna be like, what the fuck am I looking at again for the Spark? But who knows? Maybe they take some they live up to the name that I thought they were gonna have at the beginning of the year. Where I'm like, holy shit, this team's really good. That's gonna be my worst case scenario, honestly, /best/worst case. If this team goes to playoffs and is actually really, really good after a whole year of looking just like the most
I don't see it.
confusing, weird shit ever. No, I don't think it's gonna happen. But like that's like the best/worst case scenario is they go to playoffs and they're like actually really good and they finally live up to the name they should have been as good this whole year as, you know? But I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I also thought the Gushway Doom was good, but not like that good. I don't think it's gonna be like.
Oh no, it's not revolutionary. It's not like the best in the league, but it was better than I was anticipating it to be.
Sure.
Is it gonna be good enough to counter on Spitfire? That's the question.
Maybe. I think Doom potentially is a really good counter to the Reinhardt.
But also, I mean, in our bracket, they don't have to play London Spitfire. They're playing Boston and
no.
they're fine. So
No. So Uncle Spark made it. I can't remember what the graphic looks like, and I can't find it about who is favored to make it. O2 Blast is in the grand final after beating Soul Inferno.
Essentially, the next favorite to make it is Infernal.
But
Yeah,
I don't
but
think
they got beat by
Infernal.
O2 Blast.
Infernal don't beat O2 Blast. Like O2 Blast is like low key very good right now because Who Are You Genji still fucking pounds. It's just in.
Dude.
Who Are You is still incredible at Genji. And then like he's been playing really well.
But the thing is, O2 Blast, even if they win the bracket, they need Infernal and Fuel to lose out to make it.
Oh yeah,
O2 Blast could make it to playoffs. They just need Infernal and Dallas to lose out.
Yeah,
So-
which is kind of sad that they could literally win out the bracket and not qualify still. But
Woo! Love that.
but yeah, Soul Infernal, they look okay in this meta. It'll be between Dallas and Soul Infernal. I think is the most likely.
I rate Fuel higher in this meta still than Infernal, even though I know Fuel like got 3-0'd by Spark. Like I still believe in the Rush like Fuel comps and like them pounding on the Junker Queen, really innovating on the Junker Queen, or like if making it more efficient, maximizing it.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, when these brackets are complete, the East will have their own play-ins bracket because these are not the play-in brackets. So we will talk about the East play-in brackets after the East knockout brackets are complete. And then we can talk about who will be the last team to make it to playoffs.
Because they just throw all the AL teams in there, right? After it's done.
I'm pretty sure there's no contender teams. Don't quote me on that because
in the play-ins for East, the play-ins
Yeah.
for East are only Overwatch League. No contenders teams are allowed in the play-ins.
Yeah.
So O2 Blast needs to qualify
They have
now by Infernal and Dallas losing.
Yes.
So if Dallas beats Poker Face, they can't make it or something like
I
that.
can't wait to watch more Guangzhou Shanghai Dragons. I'm really looking forward to that, honestly.
But imagine the
What were
miracle
you
run
saying?
where Guangzhou wins through the play.
The Jinmu Farah is going to come out of the woodwork and it's just going to pound.
It was meta all
Oh, my.
along. No.
Oh my. All right. There you have it. Plat Chat, episode 193. Brent's Player of the Week. Brent's Player of the Week, anyone?
Well, I don't know.
It's been a slow week.
Yeah.
It's not really been that
Me and
slow. I mean,
Connor
it's
for
been
not
slow.
losing that many
I'm pretty
brain
slow.
cells playing We Were Here.
No, there's got to be a better candidate.
XCC signing the
this is not
guard.
even like it can't even be a player who's interested. I'm interested in having $10 million as well. So this 10.
But he actually has $10 million.
Yeah, but-
You don't.
yeah,
That's true. Yeah, but the point being,
He's closer to owning the guard than you are to
He's
owning 10
interested
mil.
in doing something that is not going to happen. I'm interested in doing something that's not going to happen as well. So like, it's like I'm thinking like, I don't know, maybe
What the fuck happened this week?
gotta be something.
How's the scientific
Shanghai
community?
AI editor.
No, that's just me.
It was funny. It could be Super. He played at the GOAT tournament with the Ludwig GOAT tournament, then got his ass
Did he win?
beat, though. No, not even
No.
close. Not even
Exactly.
close. Yeah, Valiant. I think they
Thank you,
officially
Ellie
said-
Valiant, for everything.
I think the Valiant is officially. They're officially. Let's give Britain's Player of the Week to the Valiant.
No, we are not giving it to the Valiant. They don't deserve it. They killed my boy.
Can we give Britain's Player of the Week to Sam S9mm for not knowing that the UK is comprised of multiple countries?
You didn't know that?
What?
Yeah.
America, baby. America.
That's rough. That's real rough.
We
Oh,
can do
boy.
that. We
It's-
could also
it's-
give it to him for like.
Oh
he
yeah, let's give
didn't
it to the
know-
chat mate. Fuck it.
Oh sure, Chad.
Oh,
mate.
yeah.
sure.
He came out,
Chad
fucking
mate.
pounded on
Yeah,
Reinhardt,
that
and
was
said,
why not?
fun.
yeah,
Chad mate.
Entertainment value through the roof, actually. Yeah, Chad, mate.
yeah, hell yeah.
I'm
I'm
for
down with that.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up some science stuff, but there's nothing really that stands out.
Wait,
Or just
actually,
about science.
I need to ask Jaws for his response. Have you seen the BP? How would they hold a job?
Oh,
The
chart
9-5.
and tier
I
list?
did
did
the
see
9-5.
You
that.
got rated
I've
as you
had
would
a
not last
9-5.
one day. What
I've
did
had
you do?
a 9.5. I worked for 6.5 years at fucking game station.
So you set them
6.5
under.
fucking years. Well, Game Station got bought out by. I don't want to get into it. They got bought out by Game. We turned into Game.
Just game?
Game? They turned into game?
They just turned into a game?
Okay, so
They
there were two
turned
different
into games.
companies.
Jaws is just making up companies to
No,
defend
I'm not.
himself.
It's game. It's just called fucking. There was Game Station.
How did
and
they
there was
manage to
Game.
get that name? They just got game? They got the word
Well,
game?
it's copyrighted in the UK. There you
Oh,
go.
there you
Game.
go.
That's crazy.
And then
They're
get
just called
Game Station. Type in Game Station. The fucking better company. The actual straight up better company. Go on Wikipedia. Game Station, bro. The fuck UK
Defunct.
video game. Yeah, I've still got a polo t-shirt with Game Station embroidered
Oh
on it, and
my
it says
God.
player on it. I've still got that shit somewhere. Game Station was elite.
Player.
That was good
Jaws
shit.
Also,
rocking the
it's fucked up.
player.
It's super fucked up on that tier list, by the way, because BP put me in the A tier when I literally work a 9 to 5 right now.
Well,
Yeah,
you
but
know.
maybe they don't think you do a very good job, so you're an 8.
Oh, okay.
Art
That's
did kind of call you out on that one. You work at 11
You're like
till
at the
6, whatever
bottom.
Art said.
Yeah,
You're
Jack's
like at the
like
bottom
really low
vertically.
down
Yeah,
there.
Jack-
Yeah,
they
they
put-
really
I'm
they-
really
they
low.
put us
I've
really
held
low.
a 9.5 for like 6 years, bro.
That's
Like,
crazy,
what the
dude. They think
fuck?
Chipsa can hold a job better than you, man. That's
That
That's
is
crazy.
actually, I
crazy.
think that
Wow.
actually is kind of fucked up that they think you're in the same tier as like Apply and like Bastion main.
Bastion
Like,
And
what?
Shore
Mate.
War.
Like that's
Sure.
actually crazy that they have you in the same tier as that. That's fucked up. I think that is
Custa
like
and
actually...
Avast in A.
Crazy.
Yeah,
messed
you
up.
know, bought for business.
But I'm
what
actually
can we say?
working a job right now. I'm literally
That is
working,
true.
not currently at this exact moment in time, but holistically.
It's a part-time gig.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
never had a
No.
9 to 5. I worked at a bar like as a proper job, but like it's not a 9 to 5 working at a bar.
I've never had a 9 to 5 either, so I'm just very
Yeah.
happy I'm not on this list because I don't know if I can make it.
Zero life experience moment.
Oh, yeah, I like the freelancer life. You know, if this doesn't work out, I can see myself going to like TV broadcasting and do like contract work or something for TV. It's fun. So, work in production. Orpa production, something. It's fun. All right. So, who's actually like, check Chadmate?
I think Chad, mate.
do
I
it,
think
Chad.
yeah,
All right,
that's a
Chad, mate.
redemption arc.
Someone, Genji, and Chadmate.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. Plat Chat episode 193. It was a good one. Thank you, gentlemen, for your contributions this week.
We went a lot
good
longer
luck.
than I thought we were going to.
Yeah, it was a great episode.
Yeah.
Good luck with RuneScape, Jaws, and your early morning chores. And we'll see you next week, gentlemen. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody.